Okay, guys, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly dungeon master this evening. Tonight, we were going to be playing the World of Warcraft. No, we weren't. We're playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition. But unfortunately, as is perhaps stereotypically Canadian, I have lost some players to the NHL playoffs. So we decided to run something a little different tonight. And tonight, we're going to carry on with our 5th edition D&D game, playing... Oh, I'm getting feedback from somebody. Who is that? Let's hear. Oh, it might have been you there, Steve-O. But I'm not getting it any longer. Tonight we're going to be playing in the World of Warcraft, in Azeroth. And with me tonight are some of the returning stars and some of the new stars of the Heirs of Eversong campaign. So first up, coming back from the character creation session last week, or maybe the week before, first up, we've got Jordan.
Hello.
Tell us who you are and who you're playing.
My character? Zama Phoenix Dreamer, and I am a priest.
Nice. And the next up is Steve-O.
Yo, I am playing Athaniar Solar Mind, and he is a paladin.
Nice. Technically, actually, a Blood Knight.
Oh,
because, yeah, you remember that you are the Sun Elves have a very, or the Sun Elves, the Blood Elves, have only recently sort of established this order of Blood Knights. And they have a very kind of Knights Templar kind of vibe to them in the sense that they've got lots of secrets as to where your power comes from. Yeah, so you are, it's only been the last year that this order has been around. So that's who we, the characters we created about a week or so ago. The two players who are joining us to create new characters, I'll go the order you guys logged in. First up is Arlen.
Hi, I'm Arlen. I don't know who I'm going to be playing yet. I'm trying to come up with a name right now.
Yeah, say Starscream. You're going to want to try again on that one.
Well, all of them have the Transformers-y names, right?
They totally do. Just Starscream
is probably not going to be it. So
yeah,
what?
Temporary.
And last, but certainly not least, is Greg.
Hi all, I'm Greg, and I'm thinking about playing a hunter.
Nice. Okay, so before we went live, we talked a bit about what the expectations of the campaign are, or rather, like what we're kind of doing with the campaign. And this is a campaign that's focused around the Blood Elves. It's set in the World of Warcraft, and it's set about 25 years after the Dark Portal was first opened. So after the orcs first came to Azeroth. This is about, the campaign starts about 4 years, or it's either 3 or 4 years after the Scourge has razed the eternal city of Silvermoon. And destroyed the basically the High Elven culture. At the time that we started the campaign, 90% of the High Elf race was slaughtered by the Scourge when they invaded the Quel'Thalas and corrupted the Sunwell. And it's been about 2 years, I think, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 3 years, since the Sunwell, the source of the magic that sort of fuels the Blood Elves, since that was destroyed. Arlen and Greg, are you guys familiar with the World of Warcraft setting at all?
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Well then, Arlen, let me give you the kind of cool intro that you kind of get from the video game as the prompt, because it is actually a pretty good way of contextualizing where we find ourselves. Okay, here we go. Let me find that again. Here we go. All right. So the opening dialogue is, for nearly 7,000 years, the High Elves cultivated a shining magical kingdom hidden deep within the forests of northern Lordaeron. But 5 years ago, the undead Scourge invaded Quel'Thalas and drove the elves to the brink of extinction. Led by the evil Death Knight Arthas, the Scourge destroyed the mystical Sunwell, thereby severing the elves from the source of their arcane power. Though the scars of that conflict are evident, the remaining elves have banded together and retaken much of their homeland. Calling themselves Blood Elves, these grim survivors are committed to regaining the vast powers they once commanded. Inspired by the leadership of their beloved prince, Kelthus Sunstrider, although it's not really that he's beloved. I'll give you a little more context to what's going on here, but beloved Kelthus Sunstrider is the prince now who rules or is at least the royal leader for the Blood Elves. The Blood Elves now seek new sources of arcane magic and the means of defending their land against the undying horrors of the Scourge. As one of the few surviving Blood Elves, you must master your thirst for magic and help shape the destiny of your people. So the history of elves in in Azeroth in the World of Warcraft setting is, I think, a pretty cool thing. So basically, like 7,000 years ago, the elves were part of this what was called a night elf civilization. So, Steve, is that you, bud? Oh, that may be you there, Greg. Woo! Sonic attack. So the Night Elves were, it's a civilization that goes back like 20,000 or 30,000 years. It's an enormously ancient civilization. And there was this, they were originally actually trolls, but they found this giant well of magical power that was found in the earth, and they began kind of working with it and worshiping it. And some of them began trying to work primal magics and stuff like that. And hey, Greg, you're suddenly in Roll20. Some of them who were known as the Highborn began using arcane magic, and in Warcraft there's a distinction between primal magics, divine magics, or rather divine magics and arcane magic. They began using this stuff, and then what ended up happening is this horrific basically army of demons called the Burning Legion figured out that they could use this giant thing, it's called the Well of Eternity, to access not only Azeroth and try and invade and try and conquer the planet, but then also make use of that to basically serve as a springboard for invading the rest of the of the universe. And to that end, they corrupted many of the arcane spellcasters that were part of the Night Elves, the Highborn, and it was only through sort of the efforts of some of the primal casters, the druids, the divine worshippers of Elune and other kind of godlike beings, followers of the light. They were able to actually drive these things back and destroy the Well of Eternity. But after that, the Night Elves were like, all right, that's it. No more arcane magic. Anyone who uses this shit, we're going to kill you. And there were members of the elf race that were like, well, no, we can still control this. It's just the way they did it was bad. And those are what became the High Elves. They're descendants of the Highborn who didn't want to abandon their arcane studies. So they came to a place called Quel'Thalas, and using a vial of water from the Well of Eternity, they created this thing called the Sunwell. And in the intervening thousands of years, they created this basically perfect kingdom with an incredible amount of arcane technology, incredible mastery of arcane magics, and they, over that time, gradually became more and more connected to this thing called the Sunwell. Thanks to a betrayal by one of their own, the defenses that protected this timeless, kingdom that was kept in a perpetual state of spring, it was defeated, or they were invaded rather, by this army of undead. The Scourge are called the Scourge because it was this phenomenally powerful, like demonic necromancer called the Lich King, located way, way far north in this blasted land called Northrend. He corrupted the heir to one of the major human kingdoms, and then set him to basically supercharge one of his necromancers using the Sunwell itself. So they broke through the magical barriers. They annihilated all the defense that was in their way. They destroyed Silvermoon, and they corrupted the Sunwell. In response to that, Kelthus, the prince who had been studying elsewhere, the king was killed. A 3,000-year-old king was killed during the fall of Silvermoon. And when the prince came back, he realized that the Sunwell was tainted. So not only did he have to deal with the fact that 90% of his people had been slaughtered, and a good chunk of those were raised as undead as well. Then he also had to basically sever the connection that his people had. And in the years since that's happened, what has happened, because the land itself was so steeped in magic, there have been corrupting effects. There have been of out of control magics. The wildlife that used to be fairly tame here has become twisted and hostile in many ways. And the elves themselves feel a constant, or the blood elves, named to sort of represent the loss of their civilization and the vast majority of their race, they actually have to feed on arcane magic, either from some of the magical creatures that sort of lurk in here, or from other sources like ley line type stuff, or from artifacts. But the trouble is that there are some that sort of lose themselves to that, and they become this horrible kind of like degenerated version of Blood Elf called the Wretched. So on top of whatever horrible shit's happened from the Scourge, there's also this other threat of overindulgence. So that's where we find you guys. One of the things, you guys would have been have definitely lived through the fall of Silvermoon. So we're going to talk about what that sort of did to your characters and what happened to them. Like, we opened last session, we played the first session with Jeff's character, and that was starting with a flashback to the fall. And when Jordan and Steve made their characters too, we talked about how the Scourge had changed the path that they were on. Like, Steve's character, if I remember correctly, Steve, he was more originally going to be studying to become a priest, and then he realized that, like, my people don't need someone who studies and worships the light. They need someone who could take up arms to protect them. So he actually joined this Blood Knight order. Mm-hmm. And Jordan's character kind of had if I remember correctly, Jordan, he had like kind of a, Paul on the road to Tarsus moment where he realized, he realized that
I'm a she, remember?
Oh, she, of course, sorry. She needed to sort of to walk a different path. So she actually joined the light, and the type of holy priest, or type of priest she is a disciplined priest, right? Or she holy priest, right. So she's full on embraced. Yeah.
Basically trying to heal like the damages done to her people.
Yeah. So both characters, well, all three characters, to be honest, have all sort of their backstories reflect the trauma that their race has gone through. So that's the context where you guys will find yourself. You currently are on. I actually did not load the what do you call it? The map. I'm working on a map that we're going to be using in this campaign, or at least one of the maps, because I am going to make a couple. Nope, wrong thing. Hold on. But I did load a version from the, what do you call it? From the video game, that, for the purpose of just having a map to work from. Boom. Okay. Let me, edit. Let me show you guys here. Quel'Thalas, and save changes. Okay, guys. So this is, boom. This is Quel'Thalas, and this is really an abstracted version of it. Mm-hmm. But where we're starting here, guys, so the places that I sort of was talking about, the entrance down here where it's called Death Home, that's sort of where the Scourge first entered Quel'Thalas. And they burned their way through this region, and it's become so corrupted that it's now known as the Ghostlands. The Eversong Woods are up here. But they still, that blackened scar that you see cutting its way through, that is the path of the Scourge army. Over here is the Isle of, I think it's called Keldanis, and that's basically where the Sunwell was. It is completely abandoned right now. The Scourge was located there, has been annihilated by the detonation of the Sunwell. But it's still not a place that anyone's gone back. Where we started our campaign, guys, is in Sunstrider Isle. So you guys are this was basically a place where this Falthrian Academy, this like place for magical studies, was located, and a couple of other smaller communities. This is where the survivors of the Scourge retreated, and where we're going to be picking up our our campaign at the start. So Let's talk about characters here. So, you guys, you had the listing of the stats that you could assign. Have you guys assigned those already?
Not yet.
Yes.
Not yet. Okay. You have. Okay, cool. And did you add your modifiers too? The +2 to dexterity, +1 to intelligence?
Yeah, the sheet is adding them.
Oh, perfect. You put them on the side. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. Then, while Greg's grabbing his stuff, let's talk about your background. So as a mage, there are some default backgrounds in the Hero's Handbook, or rather some new ones in there, but I don't think any of them really fit for the purpose of this campaign, except for possibly the Kirin Tor one. So what the Kirin Tor is basically like one of the most ancient groups of mages. It's mostly humans, but humans and elves, and they're a kind of a secretive order of basically the most powerful wizards or mages anywhere in what do you call it? In the Eastern Kingdoms. Eastern Kingdoms? No, is that where we are? Yeah. Because Kalimdor is the other one. So anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms, it's the humans were only taught magic by the High Elves during this period called the Troll Wars, and the elves were genuinely shocked at how fucking fast they learned and how powerful they grew. The reason that Prince Kelthus wasn't here when the Scourge hit is because he was in this city called Dalaran, which is where the Kirin Tor are located. So, if the Kirin Tor apprentice background seems neat to you, that might be that might be where you were during the Scourge and why you survived the Scourge, is that you were part of this, like the kind of expat, High Elves who were studying with the Kirin Tor when the Scourge happened. So you may, they mention in the sort of intro text about the beloved prince, but at this stage in the history, that is absolutely not the case. There's a lot that feel like, why the fuck were you not here when your father died? Why the fuck were you not here when 9/10 of our people died? So
are the humans down with arcane magic?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Human, like the Dalaran is a human city. It's the capital of a human kingdom, and the Kirin Tor are effectively like the ones who run Dalaran.
Okay.
And they're also like, there are some secret, like kind of mystic cults and stuff. The reason why the Kirin Tor one might be more interesting than, like, say, Sage or some other background is because of your prominent mentor. Now, in the future, what's going to happen is at least if we go by canon, what happens is the Blood Elves ally themselves with the Horde at some point. But the High Elves were certainly allies with the Alliance. So this might be an interesting way to give some fun backstory or a fun background connection to someone who's who will end up being, your quote unquote enemy at some point.
That does sound cool. Well, I was definitely kind of picturing her as a sort of an academic, and that sounds about like what the Kirin Tor would be, right?
Totally.
Research into magic and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so what it says is you've been accepted into the Kirin Tor, Dalaran's elite cadre of the most powerful wizards on Azeroth. You spent time within their school, earning yourself a Magi mentor to oversee your studies and guide your learning. You've learned the basics of the schools of magic and the ley lines of arcane magic that runs beneath, I think it's supposed to be runs, that runs beneath the surface of Azeroth. I think I need glasses. Like, jokes aside, I genuinely am recognizing now, I'm having a hard time reading shit. You've spent enough time within Kirin Tor libraries, learning what knowledge interested you, and have been sent out into Azeroth by your mentor. So we're going to skip that bit. Basically, you've left your studies, but you still have that contact at this point. So,
okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll think about what your mentor is going to be. Greg, have you got your, what do you call it? Your stats assigned?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amara.
The one thing I noticed too is that the weapon training is missing from the from the abilities.
Oh, fuck yeah. Sorry, that's right.
The Keldori weapon training.
Yes. So you guys do have the Keldori weapon training, which means you're trained with warglaives, with I can't remember what they're called. There's the other. I mean, I can cut and paste from the other.
Longbows, Sindori warblades, and warglaives.
Okay.
Is what I've got.
Yeah. Let me cut and paste it from Thaniar. Thaniar's got his here. Boom. Boom. Okay. So, what about Amara? Do you have an idea of what Amara's background is going to be?
Yeah, she's just so the Silver Moon's already destroyed at this point, right?
Silver Moon was destroyed. Yeah.
Okay.
So amongst the hunters of what do you call it? The sort of like hunters and rangers or whatnot, there is an order called the Farstriders. That was basically the like elite ranger defenders. They're the ones who protected the borders. Kind of like the what do you call it? The rangers from Lord of the Rings. They're the ones who generally are out there sort of keeping the place safe from everyone. And their most catastrophic failure was not finding out that the Scourge was coming sooner and not holding them off. The Farstriders were almost annihilated to the to the hunter or to the ranger, and you're the like general of it. A woman named Sylvanas Windrunner. She not only was killed by the Scourge, she was immediately raised as a horrible banshee, as a dark spirit that helped slaughter all the people who were in Silvermoon. So, if you're thinking that Amara's backstory might involve the being part of the Farstrider, that's I think some interesting role playing.
Yeah, no, that works.
Okay, cool. So then there's not what I mean. I imagine. What are you thinking for the mechanics for her? What do you call it? For her background, like outsider.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean that or soldier would fit as well.
Let me just look here.
Sure. Not sailor.
Why not? I want to be a pirate.
So let's take a look for Arlen. Let's take a look at Sin's stuff here. So we know your prominent mentor. Let's give me a D8 roll and let's take a look at your personality trait.
All right.
I'll minimize some stuff here. Boom.
An 8.
An 8. You enjoy an intellectual challenge.
Ooh, I do enjoy an intellectual challenge.
Nice. And then a D6 roll for your ideal.
D6 roll.
A 1. Protection. Magic can protect us from all the evils in the world. And you've got some pretty strong evidence that isn't the case, but maybe you're idealistic.
Magic can protect us from all the evils of the world. All right.
Okay. And give us a D6.
Bond and flaw.
Let's see here. Bond is a 3. I will bring honor and renown to my family. Interesting. So this leads us to, of course, the question of whether your family survived the Scourge or not. So if you want to leave that to fate, you can just roll a D10. If you roll a 1, they survived. Otherwise, they died with everyone else.
Can I roll a D10 like 2 or 3 times to see who survived?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so I'm going to do dad, no. Mom, no. Siblings, no.
Oof.
Okay, nobody survived.
That's a pretty high body count.
Well, it's, that's the 10% survival rate, right?
Totally, yeah. Okay, and then last one, D6 for a flaw.
Another
3 again. I never learned proper social skills or interactions.
Oh, I'm going to put my charisma down and my strength up because I had my strength the lowest.
Okay.
That would fit better.
Awesome. Okay, Greg, what about Amara?
So I picked, I would suspect I'm probably a scout.
Scout, okay, cool.
Soldier scout, right?
Yeah.
And do you want us to like randomly roll our personality?
Yeah,
traits,
that's
or
what we've been
just-
doing for everyone else because
Yeah,
it's
sure, that's fine. Give us something to. Okay, let me.
you know how much of a fan I am of random stuff. So
Okay, so for my personality trait.
yeah, let's see here. Ooh, always polite and respectful.
Right. Okay.
You had a weird sense of propriety about you. That's interesting.
And are you just having us roll once for each?
Yeah, just once for each. And your ideal
Let's just see here.
is a D6.
Was it D6?
Yeah. Ideal is a 3. So independence. When people follow orders blindly, they embrace a kind of tyranny. That is a very contrary perspective than what the a tradition-bound group like the Blood Elves would have.
Yeah, I was going to say from the earlier stream, aren't we supposed to be super lawful?
No, the culture is lawful. You guys can play.
Okay.
Like one of the cool things
No,
about...
but I mean, yeah, the culture is super lawful.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So you guys will be outliers. But that's, to be honest, that's one of the things that's interesting about the setting in the game is that there's all sorts of outliers. There's people who break the mold for it, and that's what, kind of keeps there's no good, like all good, no all bad races or factions. Okay, another D6. And part of the interesting thing with that is playing against your culture's expectations. Bond, I would still lay my life down. Lay down my life for the people I served with. Whew. I mean, that makes sense if you're one of the few survivors of the Farstriders. That definitely. And I imagine just based on your experience level, you were probably fairly junior when this happened. Oh, and let me.
I'm senior now, since the rest of us are all dead.
Yeah. Let me go to 1 second here. We can actually, here we go, set custom class. So we have it displaying properly. What is your hunter has a what? D10 hit dice?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what are your saves?
Strength index.
Strength index. Okay. Boom. Boom. No spell casting, no spells. Perfect. Okay. So then, boom. Sorry about that. I kind of co-opted your character sheet there. Okay. And then the flaw.
This one will always be good.
Me too. I have little respect for anyone who is not a proven warrior. That's pretty interesting. Oh, that's already going to be an interesting dynamic between Amara and Sin, who was not around for the actual,
dirty mages.
Yeah, the actual scourge.
And I don't think is a whole lot of a warrior, honestly.
No.
I think she's a thinker. She's not a talker, certainly. So,
wow. All right. So then let's take a look at the what decisions you need to make. I mean, I'll let you guys pick your skills that you want from your backgrounds and the proficiencies you gain from there. Let's see if there's any interesting decisions that need to be made. Oh, one interesting decision that needs to be made from both of you is your arcane cantrip, because as a blood elf, you each start with one mage cantrip, in addition to your ability to cast magic weapon and detect magic. So the mage cantrips are found on page 131 of the Warcraft PDF. Oh, and for those listening at home, if you are joining us first time for this, you can find a link to the rules hack that we're using in this to convert 5th edition D&D over to run in the World of Warcraft. And this is something that someone on, I can't remember if it's Reddit or not, but somebody put together. All right. And then... And once if you tell me what your cantrip is, as long as it's not, I mean, if you pick Flurry, that's fine. I can type that in. But I've actually got my compendium, so I can drag and drop whatever spells you pick that are actually from D&D into your character sheet.
So we're picking it off the mage table?
Yes. So wait, it's one cantrip from page 131.
Right, but like they're specific to each class, right? So
Right, the mage ones.
Mage,
Yes,
okay.
mage cantrips.
Okay.
So I was thinking I would do various forms of fire magic. So I think produce flame sounds pretty good.
Produce flame is your natural one. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let me drag and drop that for you. Spells.
And I already grabbed fire bolt as one of mine.
Sweet. Okay, produce flame. Where are you, my friend? There we go. Produce flame. Boom. In your character sheet. And actually, if you save yourself the typing talk, let me know which other ones you want. If they're not in the SRD, just let me know and I'll drag and drop them in.
Okay. I got produce flame, dancing lights, firebolt, and I think I get one more choice.
As a first level mage, I think
As
so.
a first level mage.
Yeah.
Cantrips. 3 cantrips of your choice. Yes.
Yeah. Greg, did you find which one?
I'll take message.
Message. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Oh, I was going to take message too. Why don't we both take message and we can communicate?
Indeed.
Okay.
That's like minor sending, right? I haven't.
Hold on. Went to the wrong one. Oh, did you intend to take message there?
Yeah. I wanted to take message too.
Okay, hold on.
That's going to be my third one.
Oh, you know what? It's going in there. Hold up. I know what I'm doing here. I know what I'm doing wrong. Boom. There we go. It was going to the wrong character. Okay, so messages in there. Amara, what else do you need to pick here? Current hit points. So your hit point max will be, I guess, an 11. Hit points 11. No 10 hit points.
Yeah, I just need to add my class attributes and stuff like that.
And I don't know if it's... I'm just going to see something here. Oh, great. Yeah, cool. Okay, that works. Yeah, and then we'll add your attacks. I think I updated, or not updated, but I entered all the information for Athaniar and Zama last time, or after the last session, so you guys are good to go.
Excuse me.
The one thing I was going to ask, do you mind if I switch athletics for acrobatics?
Yes, that's fine.
For my soldier, because I'm not strength-based at all.
Totally. Yeah, totally fine.
Okay. Where are we here? Acrobatics. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of agile, fighting is very the way that they sort of portray the Farstriders in the fiction anyway. So,
right.
Okay. Then I guess it comes down to your regular spells there. Sin.
Yes, 6 first level mage spells. Okay.
Cool.
So,
What else does a mage get at first level anyway? Let's see. Oops, wrong thing. Okay, let's see. Druid. Hunter. Those Hunter's first up and out. So animal empathy and natural explorer at first level.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, that's really cool. You can communicate with animals. Advantage on initiative roll is fucking badass. For yeah, and there's that does not say it's restricted to what do you call it? Restricted to natural environments. So I think there is a way. Just give me, sorry if I'm screwing up you looking at something here. Initiative style, advantage, boom. So that should roll properly on your character sheet now, Amara.
Okay.
And on the first turn of combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that have not yet. Oh, that's super awesome. So you're an ambusher supreme. Okay. Burning Hands, Tech Magic, Identify. Very cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to take some stuff that seems fitting with fire magic and also with scholarly stuff. So I don't know if Illusory Script is going to be useful, but it seems fitting with scholarly stuff.
You know what's interesting is it could have, depending on when you came, like if you came right after the Scourge, like Prince Kelthus did, you may have been picking up this more like aggressive magics lately. You know, it could have been that you originally were studying more, you know, contemplative, divinatory kind of magics, and then necessity, because I described this to the other guys as being kind of like a post-apocalyptic style setting, because you guys are starting living rough. I mean, rough for high elves or now blood elves, but you know, we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys have all been doing in the intervening, you know, years. And one of the things you could have been doing is pushing more towards the combative fiery magics.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, one more. Spellbook does not contain known cantrips.
Illusory Script, very cool. Oh, and let's see here. Cool.
So do you know the stats for, or the equipment for the racial is what page it's on?
The equipment. Oh, what do you call it? The glaive and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's right near the end. Let me double check here.
Okay. Yeah, so obviously I'm not using war glaive, but
yeah,
just check
out
out
magic maybe. Let's see here. It's on. There's the new feats, customization, firearms. Starting on page 122.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
what
yeah,
else
right.
do I need?
Jeff took the tower shield. I forgot about that. That's awesome. Okay.
Equipment. Items.
Now, do I have tokens made for your characters yet? Let's see here. Oh, I do for some. Nice. So let me make. Okay, so first, Sin and Amara. Do you guys picture blonde hair or white hair or what?
I have a picture
Oh, do you? Okay, great.
attached to my character sheet here.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Sin, how about you?
I don't think visually about characters that way, so I don't care.
Here, let me do this. See if this is suitable. Boom. There you go.
How's it? Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
So how can we add our pictures?
You should go to...
Oh, just by editing the character sheet under bio, right?
Yeah, bio and info. And then hit edit, and then you should be able to upload an image. Okay, so we got Melanian down there. Melanian's not going to be playing today because he's off watching the Jets. Jordan, I'm surprised you're not watching the Jets tonight.
I don't know what it is. I just don't like watching hockey. I like hockey. I just don't like watching it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's see your hit points.
Because everyone's at the whiteout party, which is basically spend $10 to buy $10 Budweisers.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a good time to me.
No, and yeah. Are they playing in Winnipeg tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so your mana cost for first level is not going to be a big deal because you've got a mana pool of 3, and first level spells cost 1. So what I'm going to do is put this up here. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone should see Sin's mana pool and her health now. I think everyone should be able to see.
I don't see. I see the.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm on the wrong. Yeah, hold on. I'm on the wrong sheet. Yeah, I'm setting up the tactical map.
Yes.
So, all right. So
as George says, why do we need the tactical map?
Yes, George was going to join us tonight too, but he's got people coming over.
Oh,
George in his real life.
I know. Can you believe it?
I know. Oh, Mara looks great. That's a great picture. Got a little boomkin in the background there too, or moonkin, I guess is technically what it's called. Okay, get your hit points set down here. Ba-ba-ba-bam. Boom. There we go. And bar name has site. Awesome. Okay. Oh, and display name. Right. All righty. So, how close are we to kicking things off here? What is this? Oh, interesting. I uploaded a bunch of extra maps. I did because I don't know how to work Roll20. Apparently, I accidentally uploaded like just a shit ton of maps into here. So this does at the very, I guess on the upside is I've got a bunch of ready-made tactical maps here. So that's good. Let's quickly take a look at this thing. How does that look? Boom. Oh yeah, that'll work. I wonder if the dynamic lighting is set up for this. Oh, it is. Hot diggity damn. Guys, you came for a snack and you're going to get a feast. Okay. So while you guys are doing that, I'm actually going to run to the washroom and refresh my beverage while you guys are finishing up. What do we have left to select here?
I think I am just about ready. I couldn't find Arcane Focus in the compendium to drop in.
Oh, let me take a look. That might be, is it one of the ones that has the asterisk next to it?
Well, just when I searched.
Let's see here. 140. It's called Arcane Focus?
Yes.
Arcane Focus.
It's not a spell, it's equipment. I get either a component pouch or.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and just add it in. It's okay. Hold on. Is it? It might be. Is it something that's specific to your class?
It's for the mage class.
Let's see here. What is it? What does it say for the Arcane Focus?
It just says a component pouch or B, an Arcane Focus. And it
so I think an Arcane. It's just like a staff or a dagger. Or a sword.
Well, I have a quarterstaff, so I can.
Yeah, that could be Arcane. So that's what
spells.
Yeah. So I think you just need that in order to cast your spells. Then is all. Okay, cool. Well, then I will. I'm gonna go to the washroom, and then I will come back and see what trouble we can get our characters into. All right. How are our characters coming together? Oh, that's Zama. Amara. Let's see here. Good. Nice.
I think I'm pretty much done.
Your short sword. What is your damage to your short sword? 1d6?
Yeah, it's D6. D6 dex. Finesse weapon.
These character traits are pretty fucking good, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love how easy it is to throw these characters together on this. All right, and how about Amara? Like, what do you think her story is with her family? Is she from a family of Farstriders as well, or is she?
I think I'm an outcast. I think that that my choice to join the Farstriders didn't go over well with my family.
What do you think their focus was? Because during pre-Scourge, I mean, they could hit the full gamut. They could be nobles, they could be artisans, they could be scholars, they could be artists, they could be servants.
I was almost kind of feeling like they left with Sylvana, but I don't know if I want to go that way.
Okay.
So they're
undead now. Oh, that's
part of the other team.
Oh, that's fucking. Actually, so that could set up some really interesting shit too. If your family died and was raised as Forsaken, at some point in the canon history, the Blood Elves meet up with them.
Yes.
Right. So that's fucking cool. They actually had in the most recent expansion, they had a short story published for it where, like. To try and make amends between the Horde and the Alliance, living inhabitants of Lordaeron, a human city that was destroyed by the Scourge, they meet up with their dead relatives who are now raised as Forsaken. It's fucked up.
So can you add? So I just type the description for my class talents in, or is there something you can select so that it just brings it up?
No, yeah, you just click on the because these are custom classes. Just click on it and then type her in.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then when you click on it, it should display just perfectly.
Okay.
Okay. So is your family alive, or do you want to leave it to chance?
I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Well,
here we go.
They're clearly not alive.
Yeah.
But they may still be around.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Alrighty.
So I need to pick prepared spells, don't I?
You do. So I think you can prepare. It's your level plus your intelligence bonus.
Yes.
That becomes your repertoire.
I think that means prepared.
Ooh. We don't have Jeff here to talk about what he's drinking tonight, but I'm actually living large tonight. I've been doing no refined sugar in April, so I've had basically all of my food has tasted like ass for about 2 weeks now. But I discovered today that I can have I'm not really a pop drinker most of the time anyway. I just drink water. But I've been really craving something sweet, and sugar-free Dr. Pepper or Diet Dr. Pepper tastes pretty much like Dr. Pepper. So it's pretty great.
So do you have?
I think that's what my grandmother drinks.
Oh yeah.
Do you have the
I'm sure this will end well for you.
To edit that PDF or to be able to copy from it? I cannot copy from the PDF.
So if you select Yeah, if you just change to the select tool.
Okay.
Right click on the PDF and go to select tool instead of hand tool, and then you should be able to cut and paste.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And if I remember too, like this one it's formatted properly, so it shouldn't look too weird in the text. You may need to get rid of some spaces, but all right. So I think we're pretty much ready to start now. I feel like I should have written an adventure. Just kidding.
Well, you could just have it start off drowning
for one shots.
That seems like
Sorry, was that Erlen?
Oh, I was saying, well, aren't there a couple rules for one shots floating around?
This is for an ongoing campaign, though. Like this is.
Oh,
yeah. George actually asked too about whether this was going to be ongoing, and yeah, like what I'm doing with this one is just I'm trying out the campaign structure that Mike Shea suggests in Lazy Dungeon Master, where you're starting with like a starting point story and this kind of like building the story out from the spokes rather than doing a sandbox or doing a scripted, AP. So we'll see how it goes. So let's talk about what we've been doing while you guys are entering the last bit of information there. Let's bring Jordan and Steve-O in on this game because they did show up to play, not to watch us play. So Jordan, tell us about what Zama's been doing over the last couple of years. Like what is her what place has she found for herself in kind of the post Scourge world?
I would say she's been just because she used to be nobility, so she's kind of come down from that to just kind of help as many people as she can of her own people.
Okay.
Not specifically her own people, like she specifically kind of seek out her own people because we're all scattered to the wind, basically, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And helping as many people as I can.
Son of Phoenix. Okay, cool. Steve-O, how about Athaniar? Is he literally taking up arms to protect his people at this point?
Let me think about that. I mean, he's doing. I mean, yeah, that would be the explanation, I guess. Yeah, because he's taking up arms because he feels he has to, going from priest to being a warrior.
Sure. Let's take a look at that map for Kelthalos again too. So I keep saying Kel because it's Quelthalos in the in the official fiction. So Silvermoon is obviously not that big. This is a stylized version, so it's not this massive thing that takes up 40 miles or 50 miles or however the fuck big that is. But what it does give you a rough idea of where the important bits are on this. What I'm going to do for the purpose of our campaign is basically you assume that imagine if this was like a stylized map in a not a map that you would navigate on, but this would be something that we found in the fiction of like an illustrated, to give you a general sense, something that might be in a history book or something like that, to give a general sense of where the geographic barriers are. But the Silvermoon, the city itself, still has not been retaken for where we're starting our campaign. Everyone's living on Sunstrider. There is an order of there's a couple different sort of like factions that have begun to coalesce in this new Blood Elf society. One is the Outrunners, and the Outrunners are responsible for basically they're running forays into the ruins of Silvermoon to try and get supplies and collect things and whatnot. They sail across the kind of the water that or the firth. Is it a firth? No, strait, I guess, because strait is in and out on both sides. Between the strait that leads to Silvermoon itself. And there are the Fire Striders, but there's very, very few of them left. And they're kind of stretched thin. So I'm kind of picturing for Amara that you had a kind of a baptism by fire initially during the Scourge because they needed to get everyone out there, but there hasn't really been someone who's had time to properly train you since.
Yeah, I've been left to my own devices.
Yeah, so you're maybe working with it does sound like both you and Thaniar would be actually working with the with the defense of Sunstrider Isle, the place you guys now find yourself. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's take a look at. So here's kind of what one view of Sunstrider Isle is.
Can I go to the mailbox and get my heirloom armor before we start?
You cannot. What do you call it? The thing that is, I think so. One of the things that is all of you guys are kind of having to deal with. All of you are relatively young, so you've spent your entire childhood, which is up to I think like 60 years old. So like your kid, the High Elves children have a fairly extended childhood. You grew up in nothing but spring. Before the Scourge, this land was eternal spring. It was eternal rebirth. It was forever, beautiful, cool mornings, lovely, cool evenings, and, warm spring days. Comfortable always, never too hot, never too cold. In the intervening years, the seasons have come and gone, but the fauna here has largely stayed the same. But rather than being in an arrested stage of spring, it is now in an arrested stage of fall. So it's almost as if or in autumn. So it's as if the land itself has embraced the idea of a pending death and a impending annihilation of your species. But in amongst those. The kind of stuck, oranges and red. It's almost as if the land itself is responding to the new name that the elves have taken for themselves as well. Kelthus Sunstrider, your prince, and for those who weren't there for the first time too, the fact that he hasn't taken the title of king is an intentional decision. He recognized that the last king of the High Elves died at the walls of Silvermoon, and now it's a different people, and they do not have a king. They only have a prince. But they have a prince who's absent now. So he has gone off to take care of something. And rumor has it that he still is taking strides to try and help your people just from somewhere else. And one of the things that has happened is that the founding of the Blood Knight Order, Steve, your Blood Knight Order, is something that happened thanks to him, apparently.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, yeah. So you don't have, and you can picture if you think of the way that Masonic rituals are kind of presented in film, that's kind of what you've gone through. So you've got this power. And I guess one thing I'll mention too for benefit of Greg and Arlen as well. So the light, and Greg, you may know this already, but in the video game, there's two different kind of divine things. There's the light and the void that people can draw their divine power from. And for a long time, I thought it's kind of lame that there's just this, light in this. You don't actually have a god you worship and whatever else. But I've kind of come around on it now. And so what by worshiping the light, what that is the eternal spring of positive energy of life. It's the thing that that makes things live. It's the kind of unknowable, unpersonified, without a personification kind of wellspring of positive force, of positive light, energy. And that's sort of what the Blood Knights tap into. And you've never had a tradition of paladins amongst the High Elves. So this is something that is fairly new. And there is a distinctly martial kind of quality to it as well. So it's secretive and very heavy armor and, militaristic, which is dramatically different from what your studies as a priest were. Your studies as a priest of the light as well, Athaniar, I think, was probably more open and to exploring and furthering your connection with the light. This is more of mastering the light. Okay. Zama, your connection is still, with the light as well. I can't remember. Did you join the priesthood after the Scourge or before?
I would say after, probably explain my lower skill with it.
Mm. Yeah, so maybe like at the start of this, I'm picturing you kind of working in like a hospital of some kind, or like a hospice for elves who are on the verge of becoming wretched, things that have damaged their mind and their bodies by overexposing themselves to arcane energy. Which is
before the scourge happened, I didn't care.
Yeah, you're more of an idle kind of whatever.
Yeah, enjoying nobility, basically.
Yeah. Is Sin from the nobility or a Amara?
I think my family is, but I clearly am not.
Okay. So your family was, but you set that aside as well. How about Sin?
I was imagining more of like a sort of middle bourgeois, kind of not all the way up into the nobility, but doing well for themselves, essentially, well enough to send Sin to a good school, basically.
Yeah. Well, and that's the I think that because the High Elf Society was lawful, but it's not. I mean, they have a royal family, but I don't think it's like it's. I imagine it being upwardly mobile, particularly over the last couple of years, because there's been so much happening in the wider world over the last little while. The opportunity for High Elves to attend, I mean, like High Elves have attended Dalaran to study with the Kirin Tor for thousands of years anyway, since it was founded. So I imagine that the funds would be if you had the ability and the discipline, and clearly your character was inclined to those studies, that's where you were. What do you think Sin's been doing over the last little while? Like some of the problems that would be specifically arcane related is like arcane anomalies. There's these really terrible things called arcane wraiths that have manifested that are kind of like it's manifestations of malevolent intent and whatnot that coalesces as a warp in the mana, basically.
Well, I was thinking maybe something like if there's an arcane ecologist almost to be really concerned with sort of what has happened as all of the wildlife and the plant life, the flora and the fauna have turned into autumn, what has happened and what has happened with the scar of the scourge, the undead, in terms of the actual like functioning of the ecosystem, essentially. Okay.
Yeah, no, I love that. So then what we'll say there, that actually brings me to one of the other groups, which is the Magisters. And the Magisters are basically the powerful mages within the Blood Elves. And many of them died on the walls, like many of their greatest numbers died on the walls of Silvermoon when the Scourge razed the city. But I mean, you have, with the limited amount that have survived, they'll take anybody to assist with that. And I imagine there's a Magister who has been working on that. What do you think his or her name would be?
Let me look at the names.
Okay. And Jordan, you're going to have someone who you are, someone who you've been working with as at the hospital, who is also a priest of the light. I'd like you to think a little bit about and tell me a little bit about that person.
Okay.
Okay. And Greg, your character has likely been working with one of the other, if not the Outrunners, which is more of a kind of like that would require some protection. Like if you can, the way I was describing it before is, like the opening episode of The Walking Dead when the guys were all making a supply run into the city to try and grab shit and get the fuck out.
Yeah.
That's basically what the Outrunners do, because the city is still infested with Scourge, and there's rumors of horrible things that are still trapped there. Melanior Rosedon, love it.
I just typed it out to make sure I wouldn't forget.
Yeah, no, that's much appreciated. Rosedon, awesome. Okay. Do you think Amara is working more with that, or there's another group called the Blood Knights, and they used to be called the Silver Knights. The Blood Knights are basically the like city watch. Oh, sorry, that's not the Blood Watch. It's the Blood Hawks I'm thinking of, which used to be the Silver Hawks. they're basically the like City Watch / militia for Silvermoon.
Right.
So because I can see her, you know, you probably have a contact at the Farstrider still, but I don't know that you're necessarily, you know, you're not quite, what do you call it? You're not quite skilled enough to be like left on your own or to be relied on as a partner just yet.
Right.
For some of the crazy dangerous missions that they're getting up to. Although you're probably at the start of the campaign, that might change. But I think it's probably either the Bloodhawks, like kind of, you know, patrolling the borders of Sunstrider Isle, or with the Outrunners.
I think I'm probably associated with the Outrunners. They're the ones that are sending us out on supply runs into Eversong, right? Just trying to gather resources and stuff like that. Yeah, that would probably be more appropriate.
Okay, so you're with the Outrunners. So I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your commander, on the person who you're working with. Give me a name for that, and we'll talk a little about who that person is. And Steve, Athaniar is going to have a commander who, like, basically like a sergeant, the guy who sort of bosses him around in the Blood Knights. I don't necessarily mean that like he's bossy or she's bossy, but I'd like you to think a little bit about who that person is. Now, what we can also do, guys, is I have handily, if you want to randomly generate this person's personality and whatnot, I do have at hand Kevin Crawford's awesome Stars Without Number, which has a really cool one-roll NPC generation thing. But I mean, I'd rather, if you prefer to indulge your creativity, we can do that first. So, Sin, tell me about Melanior Rosdawn.
So I think Melanior is for Sin.
Man or woman?
Man.
Okay.
I think for Sin, he is part of the reason that she is idealistic about magic, that she feels like she has this figure that is doing the best he can and is the sort of the old guard leading the way into the new world for her.
Okay, very cool. And Jordan, we've got Weron Phoenix Heart. Is that your last name as well, or your clan name?
No, I'm Phoenix Dreamer.
Oh, okay, got it.
That was kind of planned. I name generated it, and look, it was so close to mine. So the Phoenix Heart family actually used to be part of the Phoenix Dreamer family.
Love it.
But they changed their last name, so that's why there's some resemblance.
Okay.
So they didn't want to change it completely. They used to be nobility, but they got sick of how the Phoenix Dreamers basically contributed nothing to elf society.
Okay, cool. So they're like devotees of the light going back.
Yeah, and so the Phoenix Hearts have been. So I ran into Weiron, who was part of this family, who basically gave me shit for only helping now that the Scourge has come and not trying to help before.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. That's pretty cool. And then the fact that she continues to work in that hospice despite this person constantly giving, you know, bullshit to her, that's pretty awesome. Okay. Amara, tell me about your contact.
So, I mean, I understand the Outrunners to be sort of like they're, I don't know, kind of an underground organization. They kind of get goods, not by the most.
No, like they're not like members of the Outrunners probably comes from groups that might be smugglers another time, but the Outrunners are they're definitely on the up and up, and people recognize them as a legitimate, like, you know, there's so many things that were left behind in Silvermoon or elsewhere on Sunstrider Isle or on the Isle of Keldanis.
So have they gained legitimacy? Like,
definitely. Yeah.
So I mean, the root of their organization is
could be. Yeah, I think like they're the members who make up the Outrunners are really, to be honest, like a relatively new organization. It's something that came after the Scourge, but the members who make that up is a mix of like maybe some surviving Farstriders, maybe people who were part of sort of like the underworld in Silvermoon, people who may have been smugglers. In particular, you've heard that there is a what do you call it? There is this warrior. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, like Jeff's character actually has connections to that.
Right. So, I mean, I don't think I'm like, I wouldn't obviously be part of the organization, but I'm cooperating with them to gather supplies, and
sure,
we have a mutual interest at the moment.
Interesting. Okay, so that means you maybe like, I don't know if they took you into Silvermoon, but you've gone on boat runs and like watched the boat for people,
right?
You know, and you've seen, which means, yeah, you have regular contact with just how, while life is slowly being built up again on Sunstrider Isle, you're having regular contact with the fucking horrors that that are only 5 years behind you.
Because they're scavenging stuff from the Sunwell Island, right?
The island of Kildanis, they're probably from there as well. Yeah, and that's actually a safer place to go, relatively speaking. There is, I guess, like while there are less, what do you call it? While there are less Scourge there, like less undead, there's more like mana raids, and
it's Chernobyl.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like when the Sunwell itself detonated, it wiped out all the Scourge that were on the isle as well, and it's really like, and basically almost everything else you've heard. But it left behind horrible.
Anything strong enough to survive has been mutated.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And Steve, why don't you tell us about your Athanior's CO?
Sergeant, mid-50s, seen a lot of battle experience. There's sort of a fairly, hardened but wise and compassionate man. Very knowledgeable in religion, and sort of, and tried to sort of bring Athanior up. Has been trying to through the ranks and initiate him.
Okay. Do you have a name in mind for this dude?
Roslick.
Well, no. Take a look at. There's very specific kind of things that go with names for blood elves. If you take a look at that, remember that PDF I sent you?
Yeah.
There's some sample names in there, or to be honest, you can go to the Warcraft wiki and find some information there too. There's a bunch of sample blood elf names.
I just googled and used this site. It's a blood elf name generator.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I used.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm going to keep track of that.
It's for WoW. It's for all WoW names.
Oh, that is super great. Okay. So once you get your name, Steve, just type it in the chat, and I'll write that down. Okay, cool. So I think that our let's see. I mean, because there's not it's not like there's only 100 blood elves left. There's but you guys may have seen each other before. I'm trying to think who may have actually been in contact with each other. Let me think here. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, so what our scene opens with let's see, do we want to start dramatic, or do we want to start I'll save the flashback for a next session, because I definitely need to spend some time with the Farstriders on the day the Scourge came, or the fall of Silvermoon. But I don't have any other characters ready for people yet. So let's start with the our scene opens in the hospice, and let's take a look at what the let me see here. Where am I? Oh, I wonder if I've got those are backups. Hold up here. I thought I had up a page. What is this here? Oh yeah, it's actually a good one too. Okay, let's move you over to this here, guys. Boom. So this is kind of what, I mean, this is a little more occupied than what, than where you guys find yourself. But in the background there, that tall building, actually it was right over here, the tall spire with that curving kind of platform or whatever, or yeah, I guess a platform or walkway leading up to the top. That is the Sunspire. And the Sunspire is really like one of the final... Oh, actually, I've got some great backstory, I think, about that. The Sunspire is a large Blood Elven tower on Sunstrider Isle, surrounded by levitating satellite buildings. This has become kind of the center of Blood Elf life, at least Blood Elf life on Sunstrider Isle. There are a couple other smaller communities that have built up around what used to be kind of like noble vacation estates, or areas to for contemplative study and stuff like that. But even the isle itself seems to have grown a little more hostile since the time of the Scourge. Does anyone struggle with their addiction, or does everyone kind of manage their hunger?
I would say manage for me. What are these green things?
Green things it's a good question. Those are mana crystals. They are basically the what used to power the basically the high elf civilization. However, in the time of Kaldanis or Kalthalos, the crystals would have been blue, which signifies the purity of kind of mana. However, since the Sunwell was tainted, they have taken on the green aspect of fel magic. And fel magic has two specific sort of characteristics to it. For one, it is associated with demonic magic, the magic of the Burning Legion. And the Burning Legion is demons originate kind of from the Twisting Nether, which is sort of like the formless outside of the Warcraft universe. But when they manifest, they are basically all thralls and in service to this overwhelmingly powerful force known as the Burning Legion. You would all know about this because the Burning Legion was the threat that everyone faced when the Dark Portal opened. One of the things, for those who aren't familiar with Warcraft, there's a lot of planet hopping and plane hopping that goes on that's baked into the backstory of this. Like the orcs don't come from here. The orcs come from a planet called Draenor. And the reason the orcs invaded here in the first place was because their planet was dying. They were out of resources. The lands were all twisted. So they came here to try and survive. Your characters don't know this, but players-wise, that was all because a plan of the Burning Legion. The Burning Legion, the other aspect of it is that it runs on life. So it drains life, and it uses that to fuel its magics. And Draenor basically was annihilated because it was drained with fel magics. It's an entire planet that was used to fuel these kinds of horrible magics. So that's what, the reason all of your characters have green glowing eyes now is because you as well have been tainted with that. You're not corrupted with the fel the way that, say, warlocks are, but you definitely have, your entire race has that element to it now. Let's see here. So our scene opens with the hospice, and the hospice I'm picturing as being kind of a big, picture like a big wedding tent, the kind of tent you'd set up if you're having an outdoor, wedding. And it's all with these kind of like bone. It's mostly white bone color. It's held up by these beautifully carved, pillars and stuff like that. But there are small magical, kind of like space heaters that are inside there to keep the afflicted warm. And we can see Zama making her way through this ward. And there are a couple people who are in here for actual injuries, but for the most part, it's people who are clearly afflicted with the hunger. Like the hunger has taken them, and they are at risk of becoming one of the wretched. And the way that's manifested itself is that their eyes have grown darker, and their skin is sallow and shrunken in, almost as if they're, extremely dehydrated. They're also all sort of murmuring to themselves too, because with that hunger, also not only does it warp you physically, it also twists the mind as well. So you're walking through these, and you're going about your regular duties, and we see one of your counterparts, like someone else who is an initiate, who comes in, and she says, walks over to Zama, "There's someone who's looking for you." He's at the and there's going to be one permanent structure that looks very much like the domed structures that you see in here in the illustration. It's someone who wants to meet with you.
Do you know who it is, or?
All I know is he seems old. And to give you context for age too, like the fallen king was 3,000 years old. Elves live a long fucking time in Warcraft, and this, for them to actually be showing their age. Well, actually, I don't even think they do. It's just there's probably like a magical aura about them that shows the the weight of years on them. So they still look young, just So he knows it's an old person. That's it.
Oh, okay. Take me to them, or direct me to them.
She says, "I'll take over here," and takes whatever your cloths and whatever else that you're ministering to people with. And I what do you call it? Just he is near the let's see here, I guess the hospital, maybe. What would you call it? Yeah, let's call it that, the hospital.
It's a hospital, yeah.
Yeah. So you make your way over, through the through the kind of open, air. The green, the grass still is lovely and green and lush. But it's a much darker color than what it used to be. And above you, you can see in the distance, we see the trees with their, white bark and the beautiful orange and red and yellow leaves that look, just ready to fall, but never fall. And we also see above you, towering, there's the massive Sunspire itself, which is this enormous, like, if you think of like Orthanc from the Lord of the Rings films, that's the size of this thing. It's this huge white edifice that has all these massive sort of, floating platforms that sort of move around this thing as well. And there's people who are kind of coming and going outside there, but you make your way over to one of the small buildings near the side, and you actually see there is someone waiting outside that you recognize. And the person is a guy who is dressed. He's dressed like, to be honest, like a servant, but like his clothes are definitely, they show the sort of, the weight of a couple of years of difficulty, where parts of it are fraying, and there's stitching that's coming loose in some small areas, but you can tell that this person seems to have tried to keep themselves as presentable as they can.
So like the clothes are all messed up, kind of.
Picture imagine if a butler fell on hard times, to be honest. Like, that's sort of what this guy looks like. He has the sort of the look of a he looks like, honestly, like if Alfred, was living out of a Fleabag motel for a couple of years. Okay. His robes and whatnot, and I mean they're not really heavily accessorized the way like a magister's would be. Yeah, I mean, he's what your family would have as a like a senior servant, and you actually recognize this guy as well. His name is Laram. And Laram was a servant to another noble family that you knew from back in the day, the Sunsworn.
What?
Here, I'll type it out here. The Sunsworn family. So he sort of is sitting and sort of looking off in the distance, and then catches you out of the corner of his eye, and his green eyes, look over at you, and he gets a bit of a smile on his face. He says, Zama. And so it has probably been before the Scourge that you saw this guy. And I imagine there's some kind of connection between your families, between the, are you Phoenix Dreamers, and are you Phoenix Heart or Phoenix Dreamer?
Phoenix Dreamer. Yeah.
Right. So the Phoenix Dreamers and the Sunsworns, there is some kind of connection there. Like maybe someone married someone or whatever, but this guy from before the coming of the Scourge, before the fall of Silvermoon. And it's been quite a while since. I mean, I'm not sure you've seen him since. You didn't know he survived the affair.
Liram, it's so nice to see you. And when I go up to him, I start cast mending to fix the damage on his clothes.
Sure. Like, I don't know. You would think that the stuff that he's wearing, it has been mended over and over and over again. It's just that there is an inevitable kind of toll that if you don't replace stuff, yeah.
I pictured him kind of like in a ragged butler suit.
No. Like it's clear that he's done his best to either, and actually, to be honest, his magic, like his cantrip, probably is mending.
Okay.
Like that maybe that probably is something that he's done, but it's just that he's trying to keep up appearances and, living the way that your people have had to live here. It's just not really possible.
Well, okay. I won't mend then. I'll say, how are you? How'd you know I was here?
I am fine. Thank you for asking, Zama. I had heard that you had joined the church. I was, and you can see he's kind of like stumbling, trying to find the polite way to say this. He says, I was delighted. And that his first time thing he was going to say was, I was surprised.
Yeah.
But I was delighted to hear that you had joined. And are you finding it satisfying?
I'm doing my part to help our people.
And it's good. And would you give me a let's see here? It's insight, I think, for 5th edition. Give me an insight check, please.
D20, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you advantage because you know this dude. So we'll take whatever. Oh no, just click on your insight skill. Go into your character sheet and just click on insight.
Okay.
And this guy's not terribly nice. Okay, yeah. So we're not going to role play through, but he kind of like engages in more small talk, and it's clear there's something else he kind of wants to get to.
Okay. Is there something else you want to tell me? Is there another reason you're here?
Oh, yes. You always were quite direct. Forgive me. It's I don't know if and I think by this point he's already offered like condolences on your family and stuff like that. But he says, I'm not certain whether you knew of the Sunsworn, but they were nearly all lost. Though Voronoth Sunsworn did survive. I've been there for you guys. And you know that Voronoth was actually the patriarch. Like he was effectively like the guy who that Laram probably would have been a contemporary, if not older than the king. So Laram's been around and in service to this family for like 3,000 or 3,500 years. He's an extremely old and experienced elf. The patriarch is probably not that much younger than him as well, Voronoth. And he says that, and I mean, this is the first I think you've heard that Voronoth Sunsworn survived, because you don't really run in those circles now anyway, right?
From what I know about Voronoth, was he like a soldier kind of person, or was he just the
no, he was Voronoth was a member of the Magisters.
Okay.
So he was a mage.
Okay.
Yeah. So he says, well, I'm not certain if you knew, but Voronoth did survive, and he was the only survivor of his family. Two of the sons did survive, but alas, they and he kind of looks over at the hospice, and you can see the people who are kind of like, twitching with their the effect of their overconsumption of magic, and you kind of gather what's happened to them. He says, but my master, you may remember, or you may recall, that the Sunsworn kept a residence on Sunstrider Isle, far to the in the foothills to the north, to the northern end of the island. But 3 months ago, he took his leave and traveled to the estate, and he has not returned. I expected he had. This has affected us all quite heavily, but it seems that his spirit seemed broken by the most recent turn. He said he would wait. He would spend only the final days of spring, but I've heard no message from him, and no word. And I'm not sure who else I could go to. Everyone is so occupied with their very important tasks. And not to say that yours is not important, but and he's kind of, pretty much ready to crumple over. This clearly has been weighing on him so much. He looks at you, and his eyes are heavy with tears, and he says, I don't know who else I can go to with this.
Do you want to? Should I accompany you there?
He says, I would go, but I can. The weight of the years, I feel it now more than ever. I feel that if my life has been the Sunsworn family, and if it is gone, and you sort of see his hands are visibly trembling at this point. So elves don't, they don't carry their weight the way that the weight of ages, the way that humans do, or dwarves do even. But the elves aren't like angels or something like that, where they become deific beings later on. Even the king was still a very, very mortal man. He was just a really powerful sorcerer who happened to wield an incredibly powerful artifact as well. This guy's probably just too old to make the trip.
Well, Lyrium, you wait here, but I want to help, but I'm barely a healer. If there's something else going on, I might need help on my own. I can't do this on my own. I'm going to need help to go, because it's pretty far, right?
I may have some who can help. The Sunsworn may be diminished in numbers, but not in reputation. And there are others who still feel some allegiance to Voronoth, even though diminished the family may be. let me send word. If you are willing to assist, I have others who may be willing to help.
Where should I go? What would you like me to do?
And he kind of grabs your hand, and not like roughly, but gently. He says, let me contact you. And there's a small little bit of a spark in his green eyes again. Let me contact you, and I will tell you when you need to go. Sama, thank you. I'm going to make a quick save for him here. Nat 20. He saves against decorum. So he stops and kind of, you can tell he really wants to hug you, but that would clearly be with a difference in station between you and him. He stops his old, his millennia of habits, of position maintains, and he keeps his place. And he says, thank you, and lets go of your hand. And he says, I will send word. Thank you. He turns and he's still, moving a little roughly, but he's moving with purpose now. So why don't we cut now to Athaniar? So what are you picturing, Steve-O? What's Athaniar's kind of daily, like day-to-day life like?
Well, it's always good to get up in the morning around 5 o'clock and pray. The spiritually powerful hours, and then he goes to the mess hall and has breakfast with the other boys. And he leads a fairly abstemious lifestyle. Doesn't drink a lot. There's calisthenics throughout most of the week, and then some light training.
Okay.
And then he also goes and he visits the monks, and he hangs out with them, and he does prayer and worship with them and discusses theological.
Okay, so you're on your way back, let's say from study, and I think more so than what some other Blood Knights engage in. I mean, your devotion to the study of the light, like to the philosophies and the writings of the church, like what was the High Elf Church. I think that that sets you as an outlier, definitely, because the Blood Knights sort of draw power from the light rather than have it granted to them. It's all your priestly training from beforehand is likely different from what your, how you're finding it. It's different from what your experience is. So maybe what you're doing is those studies, I think, maybe are in part trying to cultivate that more, that different style of connection to the light than what you had before, or than what you've got right now. Does that sound right?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, he's leading a bit of a hybrid lifestyle.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're on your way back, and that's when. Did you have your character's what do you call it? Your mentor's name?
Althar Freeford.
Okay, I need you to type it out for me because I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we will put it in the wrong spot.
Let's see here.
Coming.
Boom. Yes. Valthar Freeforge. Okay, cool. So Valthar is, we'll say Captain Valthar. Or it wouldn't be Captain, it would be Chaplain, I think, because he's part of the Blood Knights. Let's say Brother. Brother Valthar. So, Brother Valthar is, let me see if I've got a good illustration here, because I spent, after our last session, in addition to creating a bunch of, what do you call it? Like the characters and whatnot, I also uploaded just a shit ton of images taken from the Warcraft wiki and the Hearthstone wiki, because there's just a ton of these cool images available. Let's see here.
I recognize so many of those from Hearthstone.
Oh, totally. Like I don't play Hearthstone. I used to play World of Warcraft, but I really love the art. All the art assets you can find there. Okay, so this is not, just because I love this illustration. Okay, so his name is Balthar, right? Balthar, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so here's what seeing changes. This is what Valthar looks like. And he comes, sees you coming back from study. Let's remind everyone what Athaniar looks like too, because got a pretty sweet illustration as well. So you're heading back. Oh, I forgot about. Hold on, where is Zama? So there's Zama Phoenix Streamer, and we see. Athaniar, you're on your way back, and you're wearing sort of like your the like kind of woolen, like acolytes robes, not because you're not in full armor or anything like that, because you were coming back from studies. And Valthar says, Athaniar, a word?
Of course, Valthar. Well met.
So he leads you, and you can kind of picture there's, you guys are walking past this training yard where a bunch of either Blood Knights or Blood Knight acolytes, or initiates rather, are kind of like training away with these big war, kind of war pikes. And he says, there's a task that I think you may be suited for. Someone has called in a family favor, one of the old families, and it seems that one of the remaining members of one of the families, they suspect that he may have fallen and become wretched, or perhaps something else. They worry for him. He retreated to he has apparently retreated to his family property, but we have seen this before, and I suspect that he has simply become one of the wretched. The family's name still carries great influence, so we will be sending a party to answer the question of what has befallen this noble. But if he has fallen, if he has become one of the wretched, I trust you know what must be done.
Yes, I understand, of course. Is there nothing we can do, though?
To redeem?
Yes.
The priests still say they hope to find a way of treating them, but for now, they are threats to our survival, and they cannot be allowed to threaten what remains of us.
Yes, of course I understand.
Very well. Then, brother, Baladash Malinore. And that is well-met traveler in Thalassian.
Right back at you.
So you head off, and what he tells you is that there is a blood elf. Where is he here? There is not a blood elf, a Blood Watch member whose name is here. His name is Captain Eldon Sunbrand. I'll type that in so you guys know, because Warcraft is replete with ridiculous fantasy names. And so he says that Eldon's, meet with Eldon Sunbrand, and they will instruct you what to do next. But bring your armor, brother.
Yes, of course. There's work to be done, I see.
Okay. Okay, so then let's maybe cut to Sin. So Sin, what is your let's take a look at what Sin looks like quickly here. Remind ourselves what our resident mage looks like. So what are you up to right now?
Lots of reading, lots of studying, probably maybe a little bit of discussion with the people who go out into the field, but I don't think she really goes out into the field at all. But if there's a chance to debrief, essentially, that she would like to, ask them a couple questions about what's going on, that sort of thing.
Sure. So I think one of the things that you find frustrating, if that's how you're spending your day, is how much knowledge is lost.
Yes.
Like in not only is this just so there is a like an arcane academy that you saw on that map there on the map of Kelthalos, the Falthrian Academy. You see there, that's on.
Yes.
It's actually on an island just to the southwest of Sunstrider Isle. That was like the preeminent school of magic, if you will. It's one of the ones outside of Silvermoon and outside of the Isle of Keldanis around the Sunwell. And that place is just infested with all sorts of magical anomalies and wretched that are just living off of the uncontrolled arcane power that rests there. So it may have been one of your, sort of daydreams of thinking like, God, there's so much knowledge left in the like in the Falthrian Academy, in the ruins of Silvermoon. So, struggling trying to find even like a rough way of understanding the damage that's been done to the ley lines and the magical academy, or the magical kind of ecology of this region. It's like trying to do it with like a grade 10 chemistry textbook, right?
Yeah,
the equivalent of like just the limited understandings, and then the odd kind of thing there. So you're reading over the same book you've read over multiple times and trying to see if there's other insights you could gather, studying the notes and notations in the lines that date back from the time that the Sunwell was founded, hoping to try and gather some further insight. But it's just,
well, and I would imagine if the elves are really long lived, that a lot of the knowledge was probably just stored orally or internally, right? That since they could live so long, they didn't need to write anything down, and then a whole bunch of them died, and now what do we do without all that knowledge?
Totally. Yeah, that's totally right. So the you're sort of at work again, kind of trying to come up with a new I don't know, it's some kind of it sounds to me like you may have been. So one of the things that has shaped the ecology here has been the arcane technology that worked this. There were these massive stones, like mana stones, that were basically used to secure the borders for thousands of years, that had these like basically zorched stuff that got too close. That's what kept the thing safe. And it was the betrayal of one of your own who shut down those defenses and let the scourge come in. It's also what stabilized the climate for so long. So, do you think that's what your studies were before, or this is what another aspect of the rejigging of your studies is like? No, now I need to learn this shit.
Well, I was going to ask about necromancy in this setting. Is it a like taboo? Don't do anything with it, or like
it's extremely
okay? That's kind of what I figured from the sound of the scourge thing. So I think. I suspect.
Well, let me explain one thing. So there is a difference between necromancers in general and the scourge.
Yes,
like the scourge is driven by one incredibly potent and foul will. Like the scourge itself, this massive, numberless army of undead is all thrall to one singular will. And that's what you understand. Like later in the setting, what ends up happening is that some of those undead end up developing independent and free will, but right now there's that. And I think any necromancers would be thought to be associated with that because they were also part of the Scourge army as well as devotees of the Lich King.
Okay,
so they're like White Walkers.
Yeah.
Actually, I can show you. Here's a little illustration of what the Scourge is like. There's a Death Knight with some ghouls in the front there. an abomination in the back. Actually, I got some. No, that's right. This will probably help you here. So, where are we here? Here are some things. So here's a skeletal warrior. Because not only do it's not only that they raise the dead as well, they also warp them to being what they need them to be. You know, here's a example: undead necromancer. A horde of ghouls. A stitched together abomination. Yeah, like there's an element of technology that's played into this, like making giant skeletal catapults that throw plague-filled things on it. They're insidiously clever with the way that like, here we go. Oh, and look at this thing. Skeletal flare. So a thing that, again, like reworks all the necromantic components to make a hideously dangerous, engine of war. So that, and then in addition to that, there are like, dark spirits and things like that as well. So that, yeah. So, I mean, like in terms of studying necromancy, it's not that it's, traditionally been, I mean, it's definitely not been accepted as an open thing, but like you wouldn't be hunting for them. But now anyone who would be a necromancer would be automatically associated with being a member of the, part of the Scourge or a thrall to the Lich King.
Okay. Well, I think Sin was probably, I think her original focus was much more academic and kind of like the history of magic and magical schools and all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then as time has gone on, right, she's sort of had to focus more and more on the practical side. And so part of that is this fire control that she has a sort of theme running through. But then also just sort of in general that her studies she can't spend her time just reading about all of the history and all of the kind of stuff that doesn't matter anymore.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, yeah, and again, like you said, or what you suggested too, like I think so much of that institutional knowledge was eradicated in the Scourge that you're still trying to figure out how to piece together, like how does this magical how is this crafted in the first place? How do we like when one of these mana crystals begins leaking, arcane power, how do we prevent that from inadvertently transforming someone into a wretched, or bringing forth mana wraiths from the mana? Like, so you're sort of deep in study at this point, trying to there's pages we see sprawled before you. There's writing on a bunch of them too. Is she the type to talk to herself as well?
I don't think so. I think she is very quiet to the point of one of her cantrips is message, and I think she uses that often to communicate, just to not have to speak out loud. Essentially, that she can point and whisper, and that's just how she communicates often.
Okay, so it's in this silence, and that someone has suddenly moved up behind you. And suddenly kind of speaks and says, have you made headway? And you recognize the voice, and you kind of startle and look up, and what you see is Magister Melanior.
Not as much as I'd like.
Well, if you could note where you are. I have a small task that I'd ask that you perform.
Okay.
It seems that someone from the Sunsworn family, the last remaining member, in fact, has gone missing. Retreated to his estate and has not returned yet. Master Vorenrath is a. Actually, why don't you give me an intelligence arcana check, please?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that seems right up your alley. 20, nice. So actually, so Magister Vorenrath is, again, like this guy's, he's really old. He's not, the leading, like one of the most powerful, but he is certainly one of the, he's one of the magisters with the most storied kind of history. Like he's been around for a very, very long time. He's not necessarily a luminary in his area, but just by virtue of him having been around for so long too, like who this guy is and who this family is. So he said, he looks at you and says, I take from your expression you've heard of Magister Vorenrath.
I have. There aren't many like him left.
No, there are not, and one would hope that Magister Vorenrath has not fallen to the call of the hunger. So many. He lost his entire family is now gone. He is the last of his number, but he and his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren all were respected magisters, not only in the arcane arts, but in the arcane sciences as well. I understand he has retreated to his estate, and rumor has it that the Sunsworn kept not only a impressive estate, but they had a propensity for studies in solitude as well. I have not been to the Sunsworn estate myself, but if his reputation and his family's reputation is to be believed, we may find much of interest for us that has no other use in the Sunsworn estate.
So I think Sin has a quill pen, I'd assume that they'd use. Yeah.
Yep.
Taking notes and stuff, and we can see that it.
You can even say that, like,
my hands are
if
starting to shake from sort of excitement at the idea that there is something left that might have some of this knowledge that has been lost.
So Warcraft is not only a pretty high magic setting, it's also a pretty like technologically inclined magic setting too. So I'm picturing that maybe you might even have like a magical quill that's just writing your, if you're intentionally thinking your thoughts, like kind of like mystic dictation kind of.
Yeah, well, I have Unseen Servant as one of my spells. So I could just be using Unseen Servant to have it write out for me.
I'm saying is like it could be just that's so banal magic for the high elves. That's easily like they have to protect their city and protect their borders. They also have a thing called a arcane guardian, and I'm fairly certain I've got. So here we go. This is what they look like. So basically, imagine like giant magical golem mech kind of thing. Not mechs because people don't sit in them, but like giant magical robots. That's the kind of shit that characterizes the high elf technology.
All right.
Right. Yeah. So like that would easily be, you could have your Unseen Servant as well as this, mystic quill that's writing your stuff.
Yeah. So, I think specifically whatever is going on, the sort of note-taking dictation or stuff, it pauses and we can see her she doesn't have a poker face, and she is just kind of enthralled at the possibility that there might be something left. Okay.
There's a small, smile that kind of works its way up the corners of Magister Melanier's mouth. And alliteration. And he says, good, then I trust that you will know what to prepare.
I think so.
Then be safe. The the threat is not as dire in these lands or on the Isle as it is on the mainland, but be careful.
Are we traveling with others?
Yes, I understand that they've managed to call in favors from a number of different people. You will have, I believe, they've asked of the Blood Knights. They have asked of the church, and I believe they're asking of the Farstriders as well.
Are you not coming, Melanior?
Alas, while the prospect of this may be, I am hopeful that something would be found here, but so many of our kind have succumbed to the hunger, and so many without having lost as much as what Voronrath did. I suspect it is a much simpler explanation to explain his extended absence. And there are more pressing tasks that I must deal with than to confirm that yet another of our number has fallen.
Oh.
But we all, oh, geez, what is it? There's another great Thalassian saying here. Hold on. Which is funny because I when I tweeted earlier today about this, someone had responded with this specific thing. He looks at you and says, oh, it wasn't quite what I wanted. No, but what he says, yeah, he'll say this. So it is Salama Ashalanor. Salama Ashalanor, which is justice for our people. And that's sort of the rallying cry for the remaining Blood Elves now.
Justice.
Okay. So you head you're gonna head off and get yourself ready, which brings us to the final actor in our little play here. So Amara, you are, I think what you're expecting at this point is to head off for yet another run, kind of getting ready. You're used to going out every 2 nights or every night or so. What do you do in your downtime when you are actually in back on Sunstrider Isle rather than, making a run to the Isle of Caldanas or to the Silver Moon itself?
Well, I suppose if I have any associates from my military service,
I don't know if there's any, only because even amongst the casualties amongst the elves in general are, it's the reverse of a decimation, right? Whatever the correct word for 9 out of 10 is, that's what's happened here.
Right.
But the Farstriders were the vanguard that faced the Scourge. So even in light of those catastrophic losses, there's almost no juniors left. Everyone would have been, would have fallen. I think you may be the last sort of junior Farstrider, we'll say.
Sure. Then I pretty much keep to myself.
Okay. So yeah, so you're kind of getting yourself ready, checking your arrows. Sort of, am I correct to think you're sort of falling back on all the things you were trained?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're getting your stuff and you kind of got your pack and whatnot, and you head down to the docks. And normally there is a river that runs fairly near where the Sunspire is, and then what you do is normally you sail down that river to the coast, and then you sort of sail down the coast and get to Silver Moon. You don't go directly over the bridge. I'm actually picturing the bridge was destroyed with arcane magics to prevent the Scourge from just marching onto this isle.
Right.
So you guys
go
sort of
around the other side of the city and come on the shoreline and
exactly, yeah. So you what do you call it? You and I mean the level of devastation in the if you can picture, the thing that comes to mind for me is there's an episode of Band of Brothers where they're like there's a midnight raid kind of thing where they're going from like one side. That's how devastated Silvermoon is by the Scourge. Because it's not just, foot soldiers and whatnot. It's also horrible necromantic powers.
All rubble and...
Yeah, totally. So you're making your way down towards, you make your way through and as is, I guess, always, or it seems like it's always, your hood goes up and you're making your way down to the docks. And as you get down there, you can see that, where is he here? Laryl. Is Laryl a man or a woman?
Oh, female.
Female, okay. So she and what color hair do you think she has? Blood elves, blonde. Okay, so she's got this. She's dressed in the sort of like drab brown armor that a lot of the outrunners wear. Which I imagine you're probably. What kind of armor do you have? Is it leather or is it?
I have leather.
Leather, okay, yeah.
Sort of crimson tinged leather armor.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, you have so you're making your way up, and she's giving directions to the last, to sort of support people who are putting stuff in the empty crates and whatnot that they're going to bring in. And she looks over and she says to the person she's talking to, like the other outrunner, go and do that. And she walks up and she says, Amara, you're not coming with us on this run.
Okay. I just sort of like wait for her to finish her sentence.
Give me a sense motive check, please. Or insight check.
Insight?
Sorry, 5e, yeah. Okay. So she's completely, you can't read what's going on. She's just, no, you're not coming on this one. You've got to meet with someone.
Regarding?
Not my place to tell. Do you know Captain Sunbrand? I think you probably do. Yeah, he's the head of the Bloodhawks.
Okay. I am familiar with the name.
I trust you know where to find the Bloodhawks then?
I'm assuming I do.
You do, yeah.
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 Okay.
It'll be another one of the bigger structures near the Sunspire.
Sure.
So, and actually, like the Outrunners, you've been there because the Outrunners sort of work in connection with the Bloodwatch. Or the Bloodwatch. They're the ones who basically they used to be the militia, so the Outrunners have usually members of the Bloodwatch that come along with them, and they go into the city with them. If they're expecting resistance, like if there's a heavily Scourge infested area they're going to go into, they'll bring members of the Bloodwatch with them to help fight. The Outrunners are more kind of a stealthy, sneaky type. Right. So you've been there before, and you probably met him before. You probably have seen him at the very least. You know who to look for.
Okay.
So you turn and make your way up. This is really unusual. For the last 5 years, this is what once the Outrunners were sort of organized, this is how things have always been. So this is, are you the type to be running over the last mission in your head to figure out what you did wrong, or no? Okay. So you just think it's just some kind of different thing.
Yeah, it's obviously something beyond my pay grade.
Yeah. Okay. So you make your way in to the kind of the headquarters of the Bloodwatch, and and it's a fairly busy area. There's people there's Outrunners in there who are being organized and sent out to different areas. There's people who are from other communities who are reporting what's going on, or members of the Bloodwatch from other communities that are talking about what they've experienced or whatever. There's a big glowing kind of bluish kind of magical 3D display of Silvermoon City itself. And there are, well, actually it's not blue, it's massively red, and then there are tiny little flecks of blue in it as well. And you can see there are members of the Bloodwatch who are standing over it, kind of looking down. And let me show you what the Bloodwatch look like as well too, because they're They have a distinctive look. Now, when they were the Silver Watch, all of those parts of the armor that were that are red were blue. But they've, in keeping with the new name your people have adopted, they've adopted that reddish color as well. So there's a number of them who are talking with, making plans for sort of what you're guessing are forays. It's the typical scene that you've seen in here every time you've come in. And then you hear as you're looking around, you can see that there is there's who you recognize as Captain Sunbrand, and he has like almost platinum blonde hair, and he's taking a report and kind of speaking to someone who clearly is in kind of like a command role amongst the Blood Watch. What do you do?
Well, I wait for him to, I wait for the appropriate time.
Okay.
So, when he's done speaking with that officer, then I advance. And,
okay. So he sees you out of the periphery, his peripheral vision. He looks over at you and says, you're Amara.
Correct.
He kind of like does an up and down on you. All right. Come in. So he leads you into his office, and normally the High Elves, all of their the interior of this place, it's typical for what was their design, which is these massive sweeping kind of open concept kind of rooms, windows that open up and allow lots of exposure to the elements. But like so many structures or so many post-Scourge changes, there's been retrofitted doors on this thing, and there are windows that have been retrofitted on the outside to create some semblance of secrecy in here. The curtains are in fact even drawn in here, and there are some floating glowing crystals that give off light instead of the natural light that most other elven structures would allow. In the middle of his office, he's got this big kind of like kidney-shaped desk that's full of like reports and scrolls and stuff like that. And he's still dressed in full armor as well, too. And would you kindly give me a perception check? Okay. So what is it that's fixated, that sort of fixated your attention? Or that draws your attention to the stuff that's in here?
Well, I would suspect that I'm more paying attention to him than the environment.
Sure. Okay. That makes total sense.
That would be inappropriate for me to be gawking around at his belongings in his office.
Okay.
Right?
So you're just sort of watching because this guy is in many ways is probably the most responsible. There is like a high general who is basically like the guy who took over the Farstriders after he was the one who has been left in charge of the Blood Elf people, basically as like a not a seneschal, what do you call it, a steward of them. Apart from him, this guy may be one of the ones most responsible for the protection of the Blood Elves, of the Blood Elf people in general.
Okay.
It's a big deal that you're talking to him, given your sort of role. And he turns and he says, I'm sorry to have pulled you from your tasks, but there is someone who wanted to speak to you. And that's sort of when you realize that it's not just the two of you in this room, and you don't know how the fuck you missed this person.
Okay.
But stepping out is a woman who is dressed in like well-traveled leather armor. She has a incredibly finely crafted bow strung across her shoulder. Her limbs are exposed and lean, and they've got that kind of weather-beaten coloring that mars the otherwise perfect elven complexion. And she has like fiery red hair that accents or contrasts beautifully with her bright green eyes. This is someone This is Farstrider Zana Dawnblood. You've maybe seen her once or twice, but one of the few remaining members of the Farstriders. So, Farstrider Zana steps out and says, "Baladash Malinore."
I nod.
She, I have heard that you've acquainted yourself well with the Outrunners. Is that right, sister?
Well, I will take them at their word.
You think them liars?
No, there's just much work to be done, and who am I to, I have a simple role in all of this.
She kind of gets a bit of a smile at that. She says, "Do you feel that you are ready for a less simple, or are you prepared for a less simple role?"
Of course, I serve at your, at your command.
Mm-hmm. She gets a look of respect. There's sort of a look of approval that goes across her face. She's not making really any effort to conceal how she's responding to your reactions.
Right.
She says, "There is an expedition heading north to the foothills. I don't expect it shall be a arduous journey. I trust you are familiar with the perils that haunt these woods, but they need someone to take them to a distant estate and to bring them back safely."
Okay. Which estate is this?
The Sunsworn estate.
Okay, am I familiar with it?
Let me think here. Is
it in the Ghostlands or is it still in Eversong?
No, it's on Sunstrider Isle.
Oh, it's still on the island.
Oh yeah, it's here. It's far to the north. So like the only things really north of where you guys are is there's the Isle of Caldanas, and then there's kind of like Northrend. Like there's just the Northern Sea. This is where Quel'Thalos was located, was basically like the northern tip of that continent.
Right. So this is on that sort of starting area, right?
Yeah, let me see here. I'll show you. So, like, where are we here? I should load a map of the kind of like the world map instead. So here we go. So this is, let me see here. Can I get this closer? Boom. That's the continent that you guys are on, the Eastern Kingdoms.
Right.
Right near the north here, that's where Quel'Thalos is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Sunwell and the Isle of Caldanos, that's right up here.
Mm.
And then Northrend is right up here. So
isn't that it in the middle of the ocean?
Oh yeah, it's right over here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's between the two continents in the north.
Yeah. So you guys, so it's actually like there are there's mountains and whatnot that's kind of ring the top or the northern part of the of Sunstrider Isle, and
so the foothills north of the encampment.
Yeah, it's north of the Sunspire encampment, but like south of the mountains.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of it was nestled in the foothills. When before the Scourge, this was all maintained in permanent spring, so it was a lovely place to go. Now it's foothills in the northern mountains, so it's So that's what do you call it? What she what they need. I trust, and you feel that would be something less simple, but within your capabilities.
Of course, I serve at your discretion. So,
very well.
When will this expedition be leaving?
You have a magister or one of their number. You have a blood knight, and there's a priest who will be joining you.
Okay.
We will meet them tomorrow.
Okay.
Make what preparations you need.
I am ready to travel now, so I'll be ready in the morrow.
So she gets, at that, she does get a kind of a smile as well, too. She looks back at Captain Sunbrand and kind of nods. She says, well then, Farstrider, and she nods to you and walks out of the office.
Was there anything else, Captain?
No. Just meet us back tomorrow here. And you will meet your companions.
Okay. I nod to him and turn around and leave the office.
Okay. So we'll skip through to the next morning, guys. And you guys are all arriving together. You've been given some direction for, how to get there. It's going to be maybe like one day's travel, maybe a little bit more to get to this. Actually, going over land like this, it'll probably be 2 days of travel to get there. It is really kind of nestled in some pretty inhospitable area. Is there anything you guys want to do before you guys head out?
So is there any specific threat that I'm aware of between our destination and here?
Yeah, I mean, there are the things that can cause problems. There is a kind of like corrupted form of, I think they're called spring paw lynxes. Basically, it's like a ruddy colored furred.
But I mean, just there's nothing extraordinary. Like there's the animals and so forth of the island, but there's nothing like north of the encampment that. Well,
there's the wretched. I mean, the foothills is sort of where they go to hide, and they prey on the stuff that's in there. The wretched are out there. Mana wraiths manifest all over the place. There are feral mana worms that have taken up out in there, and basically picture like a flying magical eel. That's what a mana worm is, and those things are may be located out there too. The Scourge also, some of them managed to find their way over here.
Sure.
So other than that, no, like it really should be a fairly uneventful, no, I mean, there's no like fucking death knights or skeletal warriors or stuff like that you should expect to get out there.
Like there's no notorious creatures that people are worried about between here and there. Okay. Yeah.
No, it should, relatively speaking, it should be an uneventful trip.
Are we going to have to rough it, or is there a place to stay on the way?
So in the day, so there is something called Hawkstriders. Where are they here?
Chickens.
Yes, basically these guys here. This is the domesticated animal that has been used traditionally, but we can sort of assume that they're all sort of spoken for at this point. That they're all people are using them for their own jobs, so you guys are going to have to hoof it. Normally, there is probably some kind of like roadside inn or something like that, or a roadside kind of not cabin, but like a little structure where you could overnight. I'm picturing it's kind of like the the sort of like roadside. They're not like inns or whatever, but it's like those little roadside stops that you would find in like feudal Japan. Because the weather would be much more accommodating, so you could just like roll up there, get in, throw a mat down and sleep, and then kind of carry on the next day.
Yeah,
that's what it's like. But that shit has probably not weathered. It spent 5 years being exposed to elements, and it was never designed to be exposed to. So you'll probably find a place to find shelter, but other than that, like there's no. The way you guys are heading, there's no communities. You might pass through one. Actually, let me look at my map. Hold on. Stupid Kev, get your map done before this. Running a session without the completed thing. I'm extremely optimistic with this campaign. I want to have a map of Sunstrider Isle. I want to have a map of Silvermoon, and I want to have a map of Kelthalis itself.
Mm.
You will pass through one community, yeah. actually on your way up.
Okay.
So yeah, you know what? I think you could overnight. Let me see if I can hold it up to the camera here, guys. Gallery. Here we go. Boom. Here we go. Okay. So this is not completed yet. Fuck off notification. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, so here is. Whoop. Okay, so that's the Sunspire there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you see just north of there. Whoop, hold on. Oh. Stupid fingers. There we go. Okay. All right, come on. So there's the Sunspire. And if you head north, those are the hills you're going to go to.
All right.
When you pass through that one community on your way up there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm doubly intent on getting the damn thing finished now. Okay, so before we set out, I'll let you guys. I do need to go to the washroom again. Turns out that drinking that much Diet Dr. Pepper does not mix well with my old man bladder. So let's take just a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and see what you find on your journey. All right. Was that Lembus?
At least someone came up with the idea that Limbus is basically like shortbread.
Yeah.
So it's chocolate fortified Limbus.
Nice. Oh, jeez. Okay. So, anything? Oh, I was going to pull up a set of rules. What am I doing here? Instead of fucking around. Steve, are you back too, bud?
Yo.
Yo. Okay. So you guys are setting out. Oh, someone's got clever eyes here. Someone in chat said that looks like the Eversong Woods. Good eye. Okay. Where is it here? You know, one of the fun things with this is be able to take advantage of all the fucking like corollary stuff that's been developed for 5e in the years since I've like the last time I ran 5e on any ongoing basis was like God, maybe 3 years ago, which actually reminds me. So Greg, I'm actually using the optional weapon rules from the Midgard Heroes Handbook.
Okay.
Because they're super fucking cool. What kind of weapon?
Not just fucking cool, but they're super fucking
cool. They are super fucking cool. Like, it was literally the thing that I was the most excited. There's tons of great stuff in here. The only thing I really cared about was the weapon rules. I'm like, these are so awesome. It's also because they remind me of the 2D20 Conan stuff that makes each weapon feel different.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So what kind of weapon are you using right now?
Longbow.
Okay. So here's
short sword, obviously.
So you have 3 different maneuver tricks you can do with it.
Okay.
One of them is pinning shot. When you make an attack with a bow, you may attempt to pin a large or smaller creature to a wall or surface by catching their clothing with the arrow's point. This maneuver can be used against a creature without clothing at my discretion. Make an attack roll. If the attack hits, they make a strength saving throw. On a failure, the speed is reduced to 0 until the arrow is removed. Okay. Number 2, distracting shot. As an action, make a single attack with your bow. You intentionally miss your target, but give an ally the chance to attack while it's distracted. The next attack roll against the target has advantage if it's made before the beginning of the target's next turn. And the final one is trick shot. As an action, make a single stylish bow attack with disadvantage. If the lower roll would also hit the target, you automatically score a critical hit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's pretty huge, tied in with that ability that gives me advantage when I go first.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So I'm trying to think how that would interact. So you would still have to have the lower one hit.
Well, doesn't the disadvantage and the advantage just cancel out? You fire a normal shot.
Right, but that means that you would only be rolling. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So as long as it hits, it does. That's a potential for critical hit in the first shot. Then that's pretty cool. Okay. Cool. Arlen, you have no weapons, so you get squat.
I have a quarterstaff.
Oh yeah, you have a quarterstaff. Hold on, there is actually maneuvers for quarterstaff.
Well, I don't think I'm going to use it very much. I think I'm mostly going to be popping with fire.
In the event, well, this is kind of neat. So in the event you choose to use it, you have a maneuver called vault. You can use your quarterstaff to help you leap longer distances. You can use an action to double the length of your long jump, allowing you to leap a number of feet equal to twice your strength score. If you land adjacent to a target at the end of the jump, you can make a single attack with your quarterstaff as part of this action.
All right.
That is an extremely situational maneuver, but still,
it's all right.
When I start making you guys, Mega Man it from one platform to another, then that will definitely come in handy.
That's the natural explorer feat, just for travel.
Oh, right.
So we're not slowed by difficult terrain and we can't be lost.
That is super fucking cool. Okay. So then, one second, I want to find, before I started, I got distracted by my favorite set of 5e rules ever.
And do we have rations, or am I going to have to forage just food while we're out?
No, I'm going to assume you guys have rations.
Okay.
You guys brought stuff with you for that. Like the, this is, so it's funny because someone else was asking me on MeWe about, how does this compare to your Ash campaign? And, I'm not using the same travel rules and survival rules and shit like that in this game as I am in the other one, because it's a different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I had a 5e game where I decided to try and incorporate the travel rules from Adventures in Middle-earth. Turns out that's a terrible fucking idea. There's a saying that I heard before about, I love soy sauce and I love ice cream. I don't want them together though. That was kind of soy sauce ice cream.
Well, there's a bunch of kind of interesting things that the actual 5e version, the Adventures in Middle Earth version, does to try to get around some of the limitations. Like, you can't long rest on a journey, which I think is genius. I think every version of 5e should be no long rests while you're on a journey, because otherwise it's way too easy to just be like, yep, we're going to spend the night here. We're back and feeling better.
Had, what's his name? Jeremy, I think it was Jeremy Crawford, had those rules for 4th edition too. Yeah, like around the end of that edition's life cycle, he had published an article about to make journeys feel more like journeys with 4th edition. You couldn't take any recover any of your encounter abilities until you got to a safe place. Or maybe it was dailies. You couldn't recover dailies, and then you couldn't recover encounters till the end.
I mean, it also advantages your group for having a character like a ranger. The ranger is, it's going to be such a huge advantage for traveling in that setting.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to find. Jeez, I can't find it. Yeah. Okay. So I tried. I'm sure I downloaded the Unearthed Arcana thing on. They had those optional wilderness travel rules, and I remember liking them quite a bit. But I've fucking saved it somewhere safe, and I don't know where that was. So let's just do this. I'm not really super concerned. So the first day of travel, you guys reach that that first community that as of yet remains unnamed because your DM is lazy. You then carry on to.
Is that the one you were looking for, Kevin?
Yes, it is. But if I click on it there, then it'll the display will be that rather than the what do you call it? Sidekicks, ship combat. No, I'm gonna have to look it up. To yeah. Sorry, I'm not gonna waste any more time. Any more of your guys' time looking up. I'm not super concerned. Okay, so the first day of travel is actually let's roll some random encounters here. Boom. It is eventful. My goodness, guys. What the what?
Is it a dragon?
It's funny you say that.
What? Oh.
A bunch of dwarves on scooters.
Yeah.
And a dragon?
Not far off from canon stuff, actually, in Warcraft. If you guys were
I think it's as
usual.
Usual. We spent an hour creating characters, and then Kevin's going to kill him in the first encounter.
I feel like the lesson you guys are progressively learning with my campaigns: never get on a boat, never leave town.
Always roll a wood elf because you don't need to run faster than the monster. Just the rest of the people in your party.
Yeah, Sir Albus found that out.
We should just not go on the quest and just make a farm, not even leave.
That's one of the things I do love about the older editions is that you only get XP from going out and killing stuff and taking its loot. You can stay home, but you ain't gonna get any levels.
Such is the life of a murder death hobo.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, this is what I want. Okay, so someone give me a D8 roll, will you? Pretty please.
5.
Oh my goodness. So just so you guys know, you have Arlen to blame for whatever's about to come. Or perhaps to thank.
I want to make a survival check to see if I see the tracks of these creatures before we happen upon them.
That does sound like a reasonable request.
So no, is what you're saying.
Basically, no.
Well, if they're like mana worms or something, they probably don't leave tracks.
Yeah. There you go.
They leave little burn marks on the side of the trees.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. This is the great thing with playing with people who are DMs is they'll do the job for you. Like, no, hold on, let's make it harder for ourselves. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so what you guys find on the way is you pass by along the road. There is a point where you why don't you, Amara, give me a perception check at advantage.
Okay. How do I roll advantage when I'm rolling?
Just click on roll, and then it'll roll twice for you, and you just take the higher of the two. Okay. You'll see, click on perception. It's easier to show after you do. Yeah. Okay. So if you're rolling normally, we take the one on the left. If you roll with,
Gotcha.
So, okay. So you are making your way along. You are the scout here, I guess, and you don't quite notice this. Now I'm going to make Zama and Athanier and Sin. Each of you make a perception at disadvantage, please. I think you were relying on your stalwart Farstrider to. Whoa! Oh, it sucks with a wasted crit.
Me too. Sorry.
Yeah. Each of you guys is just at disadvantage. So
it was perception.
Yes, please.
How do I do from disadvantage or advantage? Is that what you do?
Just click on it, and then we'll take whatever of the two numbers is lowest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pretty good, though. Okay. Athaniar, are you going to give me a perception check? Steve-O? Oh. Steve, you awake? Hello?
Coming. Hold on here. Where the hell is it?
Under your skills.
Yes. Perception, there it is.
Yep. Boom. You perceive the perception. Outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of you guys are kind of lost in in whatever, in thought, in staring somewhere else off. I think Amara, you're so focused on keeping out for dangers on the on the road of movement of things in the forest or whatnot. You just kind of miss a fairly obvious thing. And Zama, you're the one who notices that along this, like these are paths that have been laid down for, again, like for fucking 7,000 years. This is incredibly ancient cobblestones that have been laid out in this perfectly interlaced way to make this pathway, even though there's a little overgrown in some small places. What you see is that at this one point where the foliage comes in a little close on one side, you can see that there is a clear, maybe it's not terribly clear, maybe this is why Amara missed it, but you sort of look over and you can see that it looks like someone, like, like when someone starts walking across your lawn too much and there's that kind of, it's not quite a path, but there's that beaten down kind of bit where the grass doesn't grow quite right. You can see that as you're walking along, like the overgrowth comes in on the one side, and it seems like the people have there's a path that's been slightly trodden on the left side, just off the road, to hang a really wide arc around this bend in the road.
Is everyone else busy? Can I relay the information? Or
yeah, absolutely. You can. Amara, I'm guessing is at the front, and you guys are sort of walking. The road here is long and like wide enough for two carts to pass. Probably one cart to travel along it. Two could pass each other comfortably.
And I know Amara is kind of like the survivalist of the group, right?
Yeah, like the reason I got you to roll at disadvantage is because I think you guys were relying on her to sort of spot this stuff, and that's where you can look up and.
I pointed out to Amara. I said, "What? Look at this path. Do you notice anything about it? Is this something I should be concerned about?"
Okay. Well, I'll take a much more vested interest in this now.
Why don't you give me a survival check, please?
Okay.
See what we can spot out of this. Okay. So you look, and yeah, sure enough, like there's been at least in the last, say, like day or so, people who have intentionally walked off the road, and you look over and you can see that there there actually is. It's unfortunately been kicked over. It looks like, but someone had actually set kind of like, not like flagstones, but like they had set up some kind of stones to sort of direct traffic off of the road.
Okay. So the Natural Explorer, once again, gives you the ability, when you're tracking something, you can know their exact number, their size, and how long ago they passed through the area. So
it's probably a group of, it's probably a group of about, I don't know, 4 to 6 travelers on foot. Oh no, probably on Hawkstrider.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's gone by? They've probably one. Just Hawkstriders, which may have been just a Blood Watch patrol or something like that, or couriers going back and forth from.
Okay. And you said that they've set it up so that.
Yeah, someone knocked it over. It looks like, but yeah, you look over. Would you give me another perception check? Sure. See, because I think you're actually, keyed in here now. Now, why the fuck would they do that? So there's nothing extra you're gathering from this, from what you're looking around at. So the rest of you guys can see Amara is sort of at the side studying this, this turn, this bend in the road. And the road here sort of arcs and then kind of goes down a bit. But the overgrowth has
something that's come by after the Hawkstriders and knocked over this.
The Hawkstriders may have knocked it over themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't look like anything intentionally knocked them over. It looks like just at some point someone set it down and no one thought to like remind travelers maybe. It looks like, you would guess that this has been this way for maybe like a couple of months. It's not like, years of travel that has killed whatever vegetation is there.
Mm-hmm.
This is only sporadic use over the past couple of months.
Okay.
Just for, I don't know what's coming. So just as a precautionary measure, I'm going to cast Angelic Feathers.
Okay. Why don't you click on the spell and then let's see what it does. Nice.
So I'm going to create 3 feathers and I'm going to hand it 1 to each of the party members except myself.
Okay. So
it lasts an hour. If you crush the feather as a bonus action, you can gain the benefit of dash, disengage, or dodge until end of turn.
Okay.
Well,
so what are you guys going to do?
I'm not, like me personally, I'm not clear what this is, what the significance of this is, but I think
you said there's stones directing, like as if it's directing off the path.
Yeah.
Is there any writing on the rocks or anything? Do I recognize any language, or like is it like an arrow and rocks, or?
It's let's see. Is it a arcane mark? Is that a cantrip or is that a first level spell?
I'm not sure.
Let me take a look here. Or magic. Let's see. Arcane mark is actually probably a prestidigitation effect. So, yeah, if you take a look at it, there is an actual marking on the stone, and it's basically like the Thalassian word for caution.
Maybe it's trying to get us to go off the road because something's not right about the road going further.
Okay.
It says caution. I don't know. Can everyone read it, or?
Yep. Yep. Now that Zama has sort of picked it up and turned it over in her hand, you can all see that that's on there.
Or is it saying, like, I'm not familiar, but is it saying this path is cautious?
Okay. So, Amara, you sort of, close your eyes and there's this pulse of bluish energy and your eyes transform into blue instead of the green they are. Give me another perception at advantage, please. Oh, awesome. So you look over, and in amongst the overgrowth that's on the side there is one of these, swooping, white barked trees that goes out with these blood, the kind of reddish and orange leaves that hang down above the path. There is. Let me quickly take a look at the phrasing of 5e's detect magic.
So are the spells stored in the Roll20 character sheets? Like, is there somewhere that you can?
Yeah. Oh, actually, no. That's a great idea. Let me just quickly. I can drag and drop it from the.
I can click on my detect magic and it'll say.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that.
Yep.
There we go. Awesome.
Yeah, because the other one I have is magic weapon. So how do I add those to my spellbook?
You drag and drop them from the compendium. I think both of those are in the SRD. So if the little the eye in the circle there, that's a compendium of all the rules, and it has drag and drop functionality to it.
An eye in the circle.
Yeah, up at the top where you select between chat and
The
journal.
top right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you click on that.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what okay, so there is a distinctly warped and you think maybe like a greenish fell aura around that tree.
Okay.
And that is unusual. That is not, some of these have been affected by, by arcane anomalies, and they grow in a strange pattern or something like that. This thing seems to be suffused with fel.
That seems bad. I vote not going down this path.
Okay. Are we familiar with these type of creatures in this area? Oops, sorry.
It's actually not a creature. It's a tree that happens to be infected for some way.
Okay.
Once you've cast it, give me a nature check as well too. Let's just see if you can figure it out. Sin, give me a second. I'll just.
Okay.
I can drop this.
Sorry,
Oh, not Sin. Sorry, Amara. Sec here. Okay, where are you here? Spells. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to recast it. I'm just trying to move this around in my spellbook here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Detect magic. Oh, come on. Boom. And magic weapon is the other one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Weapon. Boom.
Can you just delete the two I have under my 3rd level spells because I was adding them in the wrong spot?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. I know how to do this. Boom. Unlock. Bullied. Locked. Okay, so let's see here. That work?
Yep.
Genius.
I have two entries though. Okay, there we go. Yep, perfect.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So give me so how did you do on your nature check? Oh, not great.
No.
You've never seen anything like this before.
Since this is sort of Sin's wheelhouse, after Amara points it out, can Sin make a nature check?
Sure, yeah.
All right. A little bit better.
Okay. So there's definitely something unnatural about this this tree. I think that it doesn't it doesn't evoke the kind of like welcoming arms that you would expect from a from the magically tended Eversong woods. This seems more like a lurking stalker of some kind, waiting to drop down on prey.
Can I make an Arcana check to see if I can get any more information about the magic?
I think you would need to use your detect magic
Okay.
To
Well,
do
I
that.
can use detect magic as a blood elf, right?
Yep.
For the once per day. So I'm gonna do. I use detect magic, and then I'm going to make.
So as with Amara, your eyes flare blue, and these runes flash around you, and you study this thing. Now, definitely give me a Arcana check, and I'll give you an advantage because you're drawing in.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. So this thing, it is suffused with a lattice work of fel that has worked its way through this thing's natural natural kind of structure. You can picture it like that there, because of the persistent ambient arcane connection of everything that makes up the Eversong Woods. Just like the elves themselves, the land itself is suffused with magical power. So you can kind of picture almost like a mystic outline, like a bluish arcane outline to this thing. But cut throughout this thing are veins of vibrant, bright green, which is the corrupting influence of fel. And you would guess that this thing, there seems to be the corruption is that it has basically shunted part of this thing's species away from being a tree and towards fungus. There's likely some sort of spores. I think between your arcane roll and your arcana roll and your nature roll, this thing has like the same type of like spore features that some exotic kinds of fungi would be equipped with. So like if you walked underneath this, it would infect.
So this is like a yellow mold tree or something
like that. Yeah.
Okay. So I think Sin's gonna hold up a hand and say, hey, don't get too close to that one. Point at it.
So is it unusual that the patrol that went by didn't deal with this?
Not necessarily. I mean, they may not necessarily be. There's a couple different things that could have gone on. Is one, they may have let, okay, this is a problem, we need to deal with it. But in the list of problems that they're dealing with, it just didn't get to the high point. And likely there wasn't necessarily someone could properly identify what the fuck to do with this. It also could be that it's not, I think that what you can, with your rolls there, Sin, this isn't something that'll kill you. It'll just make you really sick.
So avoid it. So this is this is basically a city worker not doing their job, and they put a sign instead walking.
Yeah. Well, this is part. It's a sign of the corruption, though. Like, I mean, in fairness to whoever first spotted this thing, there's a lot more serious threats, and there's a lot more serious projects that you guys are working on, like retaking Silvermoon. So that if there's something that's just going to give people like a nasty case of food poisoning or something the equivalent thereof, then maybe just like mark it and then travel around it.
Yep. Let's not go down this path. Sure.
Yeah, I think Sin's going to suggest if we need to go this way, I might be able to do some fire magic on it, but it seems like the best thing to do is just avoid the path.
So we'll reestablish the warning marker.
Okay.
Rebuild the little stack of stones and the marker and orient it.
So it actually says caution, so people can see it without handling it.
Yeah, I think it likely is. How like if something goes wrong in someone's house, that sometimes they just ignore it at first, and then they just get used to not having it work the way it's supposed to. That's sort of what seems to have happened here.
Okay.
Can I use my illusory script to put a message on here to make it more clear? Because it says for 10 days I can leave a message that appears as whatever I want it to for
absolutely
designate. So I think for all blood elves is going to be my designation. I'm going to put essentially just across the path like a big sign almost.
Yeah.
It's a tree.
So again, as I noticed that this was a ritual. So what you could do is just take 20 minutes and do it on one side of the approaching road and on the other side.
Okay.
You know, because
that sounds good.
So it'll, as soon as someone approaches, it will show up, and yeah.
All right.
So okay, so you guys overnight in that first community, and you, excuse me, the people are who are there, the blood elves there are a little, want to know about news from the Sunspire. Some of them actually seem pretty curious about new when they see your accoutrements there, Amara. They want to know about your what sort of has been happening with the Outrunners. Are we getting closer now? To retaking it.
Well, I'm courteous to them, but I don't really disclose anything. I'm ambiguous.
Sure.
Just talk in general terms and, and try to end the conversation politely, but as quickly as possible.
The people you're chatting with, they want to know, where you're heading as well.
We're headed north into the foothills. I mean, we're once again just speaking in general terms. Don't think that we need to conceal it, but it's not in our best interest to be disclosing any information that's not necessary.
Sure. I imagine you guys saw a map from Captain Sunbrand as well too. That sort of set out what where this place is actually located.
And if there's some type of like road warden type outpost in this village, we'll make sure to report the tree that we found and that we've marked it and so forth, just so that any travelers are unaware of it.
Yeah, there's a Blood Watch detachment here as well too. So you
Sure.
report it to them, and they thank you for doing that. And they said, if we wish we had thought of that to bring a Magister out to mark it, but thank you.
Okay. And we tell them we reestablished the warning sign and so forth. But at some point, perhaps on our return when we have more time, we'll take the time to deal with it.
Okay. So the evening otherwise passes uneventfully. Once they got caught up in the gossip from the Sunspire. Once you if you guys have any questions you want to ask of them too, we can just say that we can go through that, or we can do that retroactively as well too. I imagine your characters would have had time to ask about about what's been going on or whatever. And then you guys can head out. So the next morning you guys wake up and you head out, and the road that you travel, it is actually a path, more so than an actual road leading into the or towards the estate. Actually, you know what? No, I think I changed my mind because of the just how old this place is. They would have had time and access to the magical technologies to do that. So I think what's happened is, as you're making your way towards the estate, there are the sort of magical floating milestones that you would normally pass.
Road markers, yeah.
Yeah, those things would have either you're finding more and more of them have collapsed or failed. Sin, would you give me an Arcana check, please? Is anyone else trained in Arcana?
No,
No,
I'm not.
Okay. So if you take a moment to look at some of them are, they seem cracked. One though, it seems, it's not that it failed because of any kind of internal whatever. There's one that definitely seems to have been drained. Something has basically cracked it open, and
one of the, I can't remember the name, but the blood elf vampires.
Wretched.
Yes, the wretched. One of them got to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. I mean, there are mana hungry wildlife, or there is mana hungry wildlife as well too. So you guys are making your way along the the sort of the trail to get up there, and the trail, while it's not terribly well kept, it's clear that this thing was designed to really, like a lot of elven designs, it was designed to complement and accentuate the natural surroundings, not just to what do you call it? Not to sort of like impose its structure on it. So it's a very easy and comfortable what do you call it? Trip leading up towards the Sunsworn estate. And there's one point where you sort of, it winds along and then hits, it's sort of doing a switchback up this winding side of a hill. And you reach a point where it crosses this, it's a fairly open, it would otherwise be a bald spot, where a place where, due to erosion or whatever, there's a patch where no trees are. And it affords a really lovely view southward of the hill, of looking down. And this particular area too, like as Amara, you're probably the first one to go into it. When you walk in there, there's a feeling that you have not felt in, I mean, really, actually, you can almost pinpoint it to nearly 5 years. Because as you walk into this glade, it immediately transforms from the heat of summer that you've been hiking through to the wonderfully comfortable, cool breeze of spring. You look down, and where there was dry, not like parched, but dry grass, there is this lush, dew-filled green, like light green grass. There's the smell of flowers in the air as well. And you feel as if you have, stepped back to a time before the Scourge. And okay, as each of you steps into this glade, you hit the same thing as well. And, there's the sensation of what once was.
Can I cast Detect Magic?
You don't even need to do this. You know that this is just, it's one of those anomalies that just sort of survives. Sometimes there are pockets of the magic that have survived since the Scourge. Sometimes there are ones that just, it's as if like, a modern equivalent would be like a dying light bulb, like a flickering, where like it's not going to last forever, but it will. This will likely be gone, maybe tomorrow, maybe a week from now. But for now, this is a surviving aspect of the incredible magic that was worked on this land, by your predecessors. It is. Well, tell me. Let's go as you guys are walking into Amara. What is that like? What do you feel having been reminded of that? It's and for elves, or for high elves at least, this is, imagine how strong the scent memory is for humans, right? Imagine that, but like 100 times stronger. That's the connection with this. Walking into this enchantment is like for you guys.
Is this uncommon for areas like this to remain?
You've heard of this before. I think this may be the first time you've ever been in one. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I think I don't want to lose my focus on what my job is here, but it's sort of tearing at me, right? Because obviously you're kind of overwhelmed with it accentuates the devastation that's happened to the rest of the area.
Yeah.
So,
who was next in marching order?
I don't know.
I'm guessing Athaniar was keeping up the rear.
The Paladin should be in the rear. Okay, whatever.
Oh, but if you, I don't want to tell you guys how to do your job. Who wants to go next?
Sin can go next.
Okay, so Sin, as you walk in, this hits you. What does she feel?
So I think kind of similar to Amara, the first experience is really uplifting, and then sort of the weight of history starts to sink in, and she starts to think about just kind of everything that this represents that has been lost, and that, thousands of years that have essentially just disappeared, and it has become a much more depressive experience.
You know what was Sin too is because you were gone when the scourge hit too. You would have been away from the magic of Quel'Thalos or Quel'Thalos for years, maybe decades even before. So like when you came back, this is and you said you haven't really traveled. This is you haven't really been home like this since when you set off for Dalaran to study with the Kirin Tor.
Well, and I'm sure I expected that I would just come home whenever I was done with studying and get back to this. And if this is the first time that, like, a similar experience, uplifting at first and then just sort of crushingly depressive as the reality sinks in, that how temporary this is.
Yeah. Zama.
I'd probably be similar to what Sin just felt.
Okay, and then finally Athaniar. Have me exposed to this again. What is going through his mind, or more importantly, his heart?
Yes, well, some time has passed. He hasn't thought about it in a while, so he's coming back to it with sort of fresh pair of eyes and sort of a little more maturity, but also with his new responsibilities. So I mean, he's thinking about it now. He's sort of being quiet, reticent, and
do you guys spend any time in here, or do you not? Do you not tarry here and you kind of carry on to where you need to go?
Well, I certainly, while I'm torn, I'm going to urge that we continue on.
Okay, so I think Amara is the first one to speak, and just says, we should carry on. What do you guys think?
I agree. I'm going to follow the survivalist.
Roll out.
Okay. Would everyone kindly give me a perception check, please? Oof, Amara, nice. Whoa! Nat 20 for Athaniar. All right. Okay, so I think Athaniar for sure, and Amara. Athaniar, you're the first one to see this. So you guys are, still, I guess, like drinking in the sensation for this. And I'm not sure if you even see, like, I think that you may even see the land as it once was too, brilliant, vibrant greens everywhere. A sky full of birds, and Athania, you're the one who sort of, looks up to sort of take in the blue sky or whatever else. And that's when you see just to your left, there is closer to the north, where the peaks are, there is a black silhouette against the sky. And you can see from the, because you rolled a nat 20, you look, this thing has 4 legs, a long tail, a arcing serpentine neck, and 2 massive wings. And its scales catch the sun, and a brilliant azure blue is what you can see running from the tip of this thing's scaled and fanged snout down to the tip of its tail. And this thing it's like 2 miles off probably, but it's big enough. What's that?
The guy's looking owl.
An owl. So and Amara, you think you see Thaniar is unconsciously sort of like pointing up his mailed glove up towards you, and you look over and you see this as well.
Okay.
Now you guys don't. Everybody knows what a dragon looks like.
Mm-hmm.
What not everyone necessarily knows is what the different colors of dragons necessarily means in this. So I think what I'd like is, Amara, you spotted this so far. Athaniar, you spotted this so far. Why don't you each give me an Arcana check? Let's see how much you guys know about dragons. Fuck all. You know that dragons can, there are dragons who have nearly wiped out cities. So, and I mean, I think just in general, what you do know about they are phenomenally intelligent. They are phenomenally powerful. They're more like forces of nature than they are like living creatures. They're closer to demigods than they are, beings of flesh and blood.
Right.
So what do you, Amara and Nathaniel, are you guys the ones who saw this? Zama and Sin are kind
of... there's not been dragons seen in this...
no.
Eastern Kingdoms forever, right?
No. The dragons are not... they have their own, their own things that keep them occupied. And there certainly are no dragons that are welcome, and resided in here. Why this one would be here is, for you guys, it's a complete fucking mystery.
Are dragons kind of like a pantheon almost?
So as you guys, the players, there's a really interesting backstory between the different flights of dragons, and there's a difference between them, and
they're like elemental aspects.
Kind of, yeah. Like they're it's the backstory for the world of Azeroth, I think, is incredibly fucking interesting because it's got a weird kind of like space gods kind of vibe to it as well. So it's got kind of a sci-fi aspect to it, and the dragons are creations of one of the primordial races of the universe. And each of them has, but then there's also over time, they have been affected by the different events that have happened. So like, in particular, the Black Dragon Flight is completely corrupted, and one of the Deathwing, the member of them, has been completely driven insane by this effectively like, Lovecraftian entity called an old god. And then each of the different flights have different sort of things they've been involved with. What do Amara and Athaniar do? Having seen this, and it's still about 2 miles away, but you guys are way in the open, and
we're gonna usher everybody into cover.
Okay, do you say why, or do you say get to cover now?
Well, we get them to cover, and then we point to the dragon.
Sure. Okay. So you guys, he says that. Sin, you would have an opportunity to make a Arcana check if you like.
Yes, see what I would like.
19. Holy shit. Okay, that's awesome. So the blue flight. Let me see if I can find a good. So I do it justice. But one of the things that I can tell you that the blue flight of dragons, they are particularly concerned with magic.
So I think I'm gonna. Oh, I can use message.
So the blue dragons, let's see here. Because a 19 is really amazing. Excuse me. Blue or blue-white scales, they often can breathe frost or make use of arcane magic. So what it's rumored is that actually, in a way similar to the to how the elves have become accustomed to it, the blue dragons seem to be beings of magic themselves. Even more so how the other flights of dragons, that there are other things like the bronze dragons are very secretive, and they seem to have some kind of, you're not sure what they're necessarily up to. The green dragons seem particularly, you've read how are interested in primal and druidic magic. They have a connection to the Emerald Dream, which is kind of like a planar echo of Azeroth, a rough draft of the world, if you will, before the living beings came there. And in the same way that the green flight is affected by that, the blue are beings of primordial magic. If they're here, or one of their kind is here, and this seems to be a pretty fucking old one, something is up. And with a 19, I'll tell you one other thing. Because you were in the pocket of magic, it may have actually hid you from that thing. It may not have seen you.
So I'm going to start whispering to the group. The blue dragons are magical. We need to get back to the pocket of springtime.
I think you guys are you're able to get to cover and still be in there. You still have that same sensation.
Okay. Yeah. So
is this pocket a creation of this dragon? Is his presence here not infused this area with magic, which is what reinvigorated? Because it's not so much that the magic has been drained from our land, so the presence of a blue dragon here might have reinvigorated this area.
They are. I mean, what Sin with that good of a roll, they are like, par excellence, the workers of magic. In addition, like you've read about ley lines and the work that the elves did here. A lot of that has to do with reworking the flow of magic, to suit the needs of the community here. But this is,
like if there's a dragon in this area, it's made its lair on a ley line.
Yeah. And as a focus of particular power. Now, can you think of any place near here that would be of a particular focus of magical power?
So that the estate that we're heading to seems like an obvious.
I'm thinking somewhere a little further north.
Like the Sunwell itself, maybe?
This is the size of this thing, because you did roll really, really well. The size of this thing, this is one of the oldest of the Blue Dragon flight. If not, it's a titanic being. This thing is, it's probably like at least 100 feet long from, tip to tail.
So I think Sin probably has a little bit of kind of analysis paralysis going on, doesn't know what to share because it's sort of so out there.
You know what? Give me a D6 roll here. Not one. Okay, cool. So what I was thinking is that I think that maybe what's, in the hurry to get out there, I think your satchel has kind of come open and nothing spilled out, but what you guys can hear is the sound of
yeah.
And there's something scribbling away. And if you guys are cautious, I think Sin's eyes are probably fixed on that, that massive flying dragon. And what you can see is that whatever is your internal processes are going on, you're inadvertently transcribing them to your little pad. So do you want to tell us what's she thinking?
So I think probably just kind of doing sort of like naturalist notes at the start, like, size, about the shape, estimated age, probably that assumption about the Sunwell, possible habitat Sunwell, and then starts to veer more into kind of a more sort of poetic way to describe the dragon, that it's less about because she is steeped in the history of magic. These creatures are that history of magic, that it starts to be, the less about, what is this creature as an animal, and more about like, what does it mean as a portent of our journey almost.
Because like dragons, I mean, are we aware of the nature of the dragon, that it's less of a beast and more of a entity?
Oh yeah, Sin can absolutely tell you that. Like
what
I was going to say is that like where the magic that was worked by the elves to create Carthalos is obviously really fucking impressive. It would be like comparing a a thatch house to like the Taj Mahal.
Right.
Yeah. Like the scale of workings that the dragons can craft is just miles apart. So this is a ancient ingenious being of the embodiment of magic.
So in all likelihood is aware of our presence.
You would think so, yeah. Like just
especially after I activated the magic pin.
No, I think because you guys are what you're in, like the this anomaly, it would stand out. This in that this would stand out like basically like a fog cloud, because it's a weird bit of it's a bit of magic that was reactivated. So the fact that you guys happen to be in this thing when this flew by, it probably kept you concealed, at least as long as this enchantment survives. It may, it does have its other senses, but because this is a being of magic primarily, then it may just, like, when it looks over, it may be blinded by the arcane magics there. And to be honest, like, you guys are such insignificant beings compared to it.
Does it appear to be searching for anything, or is it just...
It sort of arcs across, and then it's only really visible for a matter of about 15 minutes, and then it sort of arcs down and then flies on the far side of the mountain. And like, if you had not been in this clearing, with which the trees likely would have obscured your view, it just, because of where you were passing through, it afforded you the view.
So how big an area is this enchanted area that we're in?
It is it seems to go into the trees a bit too. It's maybe like 200 yards radius.
Might be worth investigating inside here. We'll just take a quick perusal around.
Yeah, I think
look for tracks. Just look to see if there's anything identifying about it, and then
Sin agrees.
Okay. So, why don't you guys, let's see here. Give me, pick one person and they'll make the perception check with advantage.
I have +4. Does anyone have anything better?
Yeah, that's what I have.
One of you guys.
Who's feeling lucky?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, you're looking around, and I'm not sure. There's not any like obvious source of this, and this is one of the frustrating things with the effect of both the coming of the Scourge and the destruction of the Sunwell, is that there are eddies and currents of this magic that come and go. And some of it may just be the residual power that fuels the original enchantments. These are a fragment of an otherwise, once whole creation or arcane creation.
Could we not use our detect magic ability to see if there's a focus in this area? It's innate, right? So we have a sort of innate understanding on how it functions. So if there was something causing this, it would be highlighted by the detect magic. Otherwise, we would just get sort of an aura around the area, right?
Yeah, assuming that it wouldn't otherwise be obscured by something. If you, when you guys, use your detect magic, you're able to see the ambient, like the ambient magic here, but there isn't any.
There's no focus of it.
No, there's not really, and like Sin can help you out with that. Like, this is just an unfortunate, like I said, like a carryover of it. There was a delicate arcane framework, if you will, that worked, that used to stretch all the way across this entire region, and this just happens to be one small bit that has not yet collapsed in itself.
Okay.
So if you carry on, it does carry to the north, so the direction where that the dragon was well off from where you guys were traveling as well too, or at least it seemed to be coming from somewhere other than where you were traveling. Okay.
Then I guess we continue on towards our destination.
All right. So you carry on, and when you guys, it's about another maybe another 2 hours of travel, and then the path itself kind of goes up and down some of the tree-filled kind of valleys and hills that lead up towards the mountains to the north, or the northern end of the island, and it's on one of these sort of like valleys or depressions that you lead down, or it leads down into what seems to be a fairly, or was at one point, a well-maintained kind of estate. And you can tell from the sigil that floats on one of the, actually it's destroyed, I think, that lies on the ground. So what there would be here would be, delicate arcane creations that would be full floating lanterns, and arcane or mana crystals to drive the different enchantments and magical devices that would be in here. It lies drained of power and broken on the ground, and one of these is what would have been a floating sign that leads in, and it has the sigil of Sunsworn House on it. Overgrown, stained. It looks like it's been down there for quite some time. And what stretches out before you is the forested valley, or hollow, I suppose, that is the Sunsworn Estate. And you guys have had 2 days to talk about how you want to kind of approach this. You know that there is, there are, what do you call it, a stables here as well too for Hawkstrider, or that what once maintained Hawkstriders. There is the main house itself, and there are probably some other things attached to it as well too. I think you can see poking through the trees, probably about maybe not quite a kilometer in, which is a 2/3 of a mile for Ireland.
I know how long a kilometer is.
Okay, just to judge it is, I don't know. To judge a mile, I have to convert it over to kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. That's just. I know how I have to. You see me fumble with.
It's not like Celsius and Fahrenheit.
No, complete fucking mystery. So you can see that about a kilometer forward, there is a low white tower that pokes out from the thick red canopy of trees. So what are you thinking here, guys?
Is this estate more of a plantation, or is it like a walled?
It's honestly like, if they were inclined to go hunting, it's more like a hunting lodge, like a very upscale hunting lodge, but instead of hunting, they go bird watching, or they, whatever.
But I mean, like, it sort of has a central house and a bunch of ancillary buildings and stuff like that, but it's not defensible. It's
no,
have a
not at all,
or a gate or any of that stuff around.
No, because, and this is one of the tragedies kind of Quel'Thalas in general, is that because they relied so heavily on the on the magical barrier that protected the entire land. They didn't do anything else apart from the walls of Silvermoon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably advisable that we approach cautiously within sight, get off the road, just in case if there is something here inhabiting the estate. The road is what they're going to be watching, I would suspect, right? And
well, we only have been told about one Magister potential wretched, right? So are we worried about like a group of things, or are we worried about spooking one?
I think more just being cautious because we don't know what's here.
Okay.
Assuming the worst, right? Assuming the worst, that something more than what we've been told is happening here. I think we're probably best served to stay off the road and approach from a more oblique angle where we can survey the estate, see what's going on to the best of our knowledge, gather information, and then make a decision how we want to approach.
Okay. Well, I think Sin will defer to the knowledge of the hunter with clearly more experience.
Okay. Not only a hunter, a Farstrider.
A Farstrider. That's true.
Junior Farstrider.
Yeah. Hey, fake it till you make it.
That's right.
Or fake it until you get killed by the DM. So Amari, am I correct in thinking you're going to kind of reconnoiter this place first? Is that what I heard?
For sure. We're going to move off the road.
Okay.
And sort of, we'll be heading towards it, but like at an angle off the road. And then we'll work our way kind of, we'll get out to the point where we can see the estate. I don't know how far that would be, like 300 or 400 meters or something like that. And then just sort of work our way around the outside.
Okay.
Till we can get a fuller idea of what we're coming up on, like, because we're obviously going to come on the opposite side from this tower. Like,
sure.
Right. So we'll approach with the tower on the far side at the beginning and then work our way around closer to the tower. So
it's going to be a bit tricky going. I know your ability will allow them to not suffer from it, but this is genuinely like I keep wanting to say like a holler, like as if it's fucking Tennessee, but it's basically a valley that ends in like a cul-de-sac type thing. So like there are fairly steep edges, or sides or hills or whatever, slopes, I think is the word I'm looking for. But you should easily be able to, We'll pick the best approach that's available to us. Sure. Why don't you give me I'll let you make the stealth roll for everybody. Okay. Okay. All right. So what, as you make your way around, you're just like keeping an eye out for what's moving in there. Mm-hmm. Why don't you? And any potential tracks or, just sign of passage through the area. Okay. So Sin, give me an Arcana check again too. I want to see what you can fill in here about the wretched. You guys know some basics about them already too. Okay, yeah, that's really good. All right, so not only that these things are corrupted and whatnot too. The thing is going mad. It often doesn't actually affect their abilities. Just imagine like a genius level mage who has no control over their, or little control over their mind and their impulses, and also lusts after arcane power more than anything else. So that's the thing. In addition, with a roll that good, that by being suffused and filled with so much magic too, and by being creatures of magic too, it can often spurn other abilities as well. They're not undead. They become so corrupted by not in the sense of the fell, but just so warped and mutated, I guess, by the power of the magic that they can also do other things and warp the local mana fields and things like that. So there's a bit of an unpredictability with them as well too. They could just be mindless, for powerful creatures. They could just end up being, mindless, sort of like undead that just want to, attack and try and drain what little mana there is in you. But powerful things like this, like the prospect of a fallen mage, that could be quite something.
All right.
Okay. So, would you, Amara, kind of give me a perception check as you're sneaking your way around here? Now, do you get advantage on perception checks at some point too, or am I imagining things?
I think so. Because that would have been the old rules for favorite terrain and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's So I think
I'm thinking of. Okay, I couldn't remember what was on your list of things you get. So anyway, what you do see is it's a little tricky to see. So you're kind of studying the buildings and then also looking for tracks, and you definitely see tracks.
Have we seen any animals in the area? Like even just like small animals.
Yeah. So actually, what you see is there are basically the we'll see. Like as you're looking through the, at the ground, you see one or two things where it's the completely translucent. Think of imagine an eel made out of a jellyfish kind of consistency. That's what the mana worms, they glow with the blue power of arcane mana, but when they're drained of it or when they die, they just go to their natural color. So that's what you see on the ground. That seem to have been it looks like there's a chunk taken out of one or two of them, and there's some bones that are kind of collected around in different areas near the main building.
Okay.
You can also see there are barefoot footprints that lead around to that you would guess is from an adult blood elf.
Okay.
And what you spot as you're sort of looking through the lights, whatever sort of light would be inside the actual estate itself. Like again, like the way that most of these structures are built is to take advantage of natural light and expose themselves to the elements. This has a wholly different kind of look to it, as if it was built to be shrouded in shadow by being built in a valley. The nature, unless the sun is directly overhead, it's almost perpetually in shade of some way or another, which means that the interior here is shrouded in shadow. But oh, go ahead.
Their name is Sunsworn, right?
Yeah.
Do elf names have meanings like that? Like that somehow it would be significant that they're Sunsworn and they're hidden away in this valley?
It could, yeah. I mean, they're all the elves, as like goofy fantasy as they sound, I assume that they have meaning. Like there's a reason those names were adopted, and any name like Dawnblood, that would be something that would have been changed to by the family to recognize the fall. It's probably in retrospect, it's probably indicative of how much of the family was annihilated too. So, however, what you do see, drift past as a diaphanous kind of form for a second of lightly glowing blue. And you think your eyes play tricks on you, but then it sort of drifts back again. And this is that the one I want? Yeah. This is what drifts past the inside of the Sunsworn estate.
Well, that doesn't look like an animal.
Now that is not what a wretched looks like.
No.
But it appears that there is some kind of arcane wraith that drifts within. You can kind of stop and point out to Sin or the others if you want.
Oh, absolutely. So how how are we aware of how an arcane wraith is created?
I don't know if I think in general what you know is that they are anomalies. They only manifested after the scourge, after the destruction of the Sunwell, and it's not quite clear that I think Sin might be able to provide better insight into that.
Yeah, why don't I roll Arcana?
Sure. Yeah, and they're not undead.
Nope.
Okay.
And
that one. So I think what you probably think, Sin, is like, that's not an arcane wraith. It's a specter. Why is the scourge here? That's maybe what we end with. Is with Amara saying like, there's a wraith in there, and you say, that's no wraith. It's a specter. And we will end our session on that. So let me get out of the thing here. Always good to see a character who's good at one thing do terribly to end the session. All right. So let me get out of here. Turn my camera back on. Boom. There we go. Stop sharing screens. And here we are. Okay. So for those listening at home, thanks so much for joining us for this new session of the Heirs of Eversong campaign. More mysteries are revealed on the Sunstrider Isle. So I will be curious to see what happens at the next session, because dragons and arcane wraiths, guys, what the heck is going on? As always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section of the video. Alternatively, you can reach me on Twitter at Dungeon Musings, or you can shoot me an email. My email address is dungeonmusings@gmail.com. You may also notice that there is a link to something called Heroes Save Villages on here. That is the charity fundraising campaign that we're running on the channel. Any donations that are made through that campaign go directly to the good people at the SOS Children's Villages International campaign or charity. It's a really terrific charity that benefits children living in really awful circumstances to try and help them or put them in a situation where they're going to be able to have an opportunity to actually live a childhood. So if you do enjoy the content on the channel, if you enjoyed the session, if you enjoyed the wonderful role playing by my stalwart players, I just ask that you consider clicking through and learning a little more about the Heroes Save Villages campaign and SOS Children's Villages International in general. Last but not least, I want to thank my players who jumped up to be pinch hitters for tonight, because it was only last night that I sent the email out saying, hey, anybody want to play? And I do deeply appreciate you guys jumping in, because I hate wasting a gaming night. So Arlen, Jordan, Steve, Greg, thanks so much for playing tonight, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So then otherwise, folks, thanks so much again for watching. And until next time, happy gaming.